Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have guest Dr. Rita Louise. She is the author of Dark Angel, An Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities. And that's the subject we're really going to probably focus on tonight. She's got a lot of different subjects, a lot of different books, but attached entities. That's something that I've experienced in different ways in my life. Is entities attached to me? Yes, I've experienced it. I bet a lot of you have too. And we will open the phone lines later in the show tonight if you want to call in and share your experiences or ask your questions of our guests. Of course, we have the World Wide Web of Weird, and Dr. Louise will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird. And there's a lot of weird. A lot of weird. I really had to pick and choose which I wanted to cover tonight, but we definitely got some interesting stuff. And also, guys, we are coming up on Halloween. Our Halloween show, I've had some people ask us, is going to be October 25th because the next Sunday following is after Halloween. So I figured we'll do it the 25th. We're going to do some, it's going to be a little party. We'll have, should have Katrina Cooper, spiritual medium, and paranormal investigator Rody speak. They're our honorary guest on the Halloween night. So I'll let Katrina do some readings, and we're definitely do some ITC. We're definitely going to try to speak to the spirits. Come on, it's Halloween. Of course we're going to do that. But, we got a lot to get to tonight, so let's go ahead and get rolling right on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Dr. Rita Louise, I hope I'm saying her last name right, is going to join us after the World Wide Web Weird after our first commercial break. But joining me every Sunday night is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing great, thank you.
Excited to have her, Dr. Louise, on tonight to talk about attached entities. It's not all like, everybody's mind goes to the demonic, demon. It's not always about demons. Sometimes it's spirits attached to people. And we got a little bit of that, something to talk about at the end of the World Wide Web of Weird with that. We get to that. Of course, running the World Wide Web of Weird from St. Augustine, Florida himself is Rob Archery. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Doing fantabulous, man. Glad to be here.
Love the background. It's like psychedelic trippy. I already feel like I'm on LSD looking at the background. Yep. That's not good.
Right now.
Might make an interesting show. Flashback. Oh, no. We got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd start out with this one I've been seeing going all over the place. People on different, paranormal websites talking about this one. Russian woman, and this is from unexplainedmysteries.com. Russian woman is selling wishing granting cat. A cat that grants wishes. I know when I got our cat, the only thing I wished for was for her to stop marking her territory and peeing everywhere. But I'm going to get that wish granted. But this one, listed on a Russian classified ad platform, Avito, the magical feline, which goes by the name of Vinsik, is being sold for a whopping $127,000 thanks to alleged wishing granting powers. Its owner, a woman named Elena, claims that she had only discovered its abilities by accident. It works only when the owner, she said, it works only with the owners, she said. Of course, yes, you have to own the cat. You have to buy the cat. You have to buy the cat. Oh, I gotta get that. Share the article too, so people can see the cat. Looks like the cat from the Pet Cemetery there. I don't know if this is the actual cat. I really don't know. It works only with the owners, she said. I needed an apartment, and somehow I told Vincent for fun, fulfill my wish, and literally the next day I realized that everything would come true. You immediately feel that the events are starting to take shape as they should, and a month later I already had an apartment. His mother, Octavianti, how do you say it? Octavianti Lolita, was like a real witch, black as coal and also lop-eared. His dad, Rochester, a heavily blue cat, but with straight ears. The fantastical cat has since lived with her for 9 years. When quizzed over why she would want to part with such an animal, Elena explained that the cat only grants its owner 3 wishes, and she had already used hers up. She also claims that she wants to share this magical powers with others. With the asking price of $127,000, however, it seems unlikely that cat will be going anywhere. I don't know. You never know. There's always some... Yeah, there might be. Never fails. Somebody's gonna be like,
$127,000. You better be wishing big.
Yeah, wish to win the lottery so I can make up the $127,000 I just spent on this cat. She's had it for 9 years. I mean, maybe it's got another plus 10 in it, but I don't know. It seems a bit like animal abuse. Like she's gonna sell this to somebody. Like this damn cat did granting wishes. I don't know. Animal abuse. That's what I'd be afraid of. I don't know. But that's Russia. I don't know. Not here. All right. Of course, we haven't had a story about Loch Ness in a while, and there's some I'm just like, it's a log in the water, or whatever. Blah blah blah. This one's interesting. Mysterious object, and of course, unexplained mysteries as well. Mysterious object picked up on sonar in Loch Ness. The compelling image shows what appears to be a 32-foot long object, 500 feet beneath the surface. Oh, I cannot talk. Blah, blah, blah. It was picked up by Mackenzie while he was skippering the Spirit of Loch Ness. It was a bit of a dry day, and we only had 12 passengers on board. I was skippering because the usual skipper had a day off. We were at our halfway point of the Invermorrison, where we turn around. The water is 189 meters deep there. The sonar contact was right bang smack in the middle of the lock at about 170 meters or 558 feet down. Because the boat was doing 10.7 knots, it was unable to detect if it was moving or stationary, but it was big, at least 10 meters or 33 feet. The contact lasted 10 seconds while we passed over. I've been on the lock since I was 16 years old. I have never seen anything like it. We've had contacts in the past, but nothing like this. We have a real state-of-the-art sonar on the new boat. It doesn't lie. It can't lie. It captures what's there. According to the sonar expert Craig Wallace, the image captured that day was 100% genuine. Whether or not the object is Loch Ness, however, is another matter entirely. Now, I don't know nothing about sonar, and it's like a little speck in there. You think all the people have been searching for it, they've been using sonar, they would have more than this? I don't know. Never been a huge fan of the Loch Ness Monster. I mean, when I was a little kid, maybe I was a little bit more interested in it, but I don't know. It's like, it's a lock. Have we found it yet? I don't know. Of course, people say that about Bigfoot, but there's a lot more woods for Bigfoot. I don't know. All right, let's move on.
Strange things at deep depths, though, like we were talking about earlier.
True, very true. I would think, we have the technology now beyond sonar, we'd be able to find a way to. I mean, I know the Loch Ness is murky, and people have been searching forever, but we think we would prove something. I definitely don't think it's like the dinosaur. I don't know what it is, if there is anything there. All right, this next
GoPro with a light on it down there. Brick.
All right. This next one, I guess some people are getting ready for Halloween. We're partying a little too hard, but he was a priest. from the New York Post. Priests arrested for having threesome with corset-wearing dominatrixes on church altar. Yeah, you heard that right. Have mercy on us, Lord, this article begins. A Louisiana priest was arrested for allegedly filming himself having sex with 2 dominatrixes on an altar at a Catholic church, a report said Thursday. The priest, identified by NOLA.com as the Reverend Travis Clark, was busted after passersby saw the lights on later than usual on September 30th and peeked inside St. Peter's and Paul's Roman Catholic Church in Pearl River. An unidentified witness saw the half-naked priest having sex with 2 women who were dressed in corsets and high-heeled boots. The altar was also adorned with stage lighting, several sex toys, and a cell phone mounted on a tripod that was recording the act. Ooh. Wow, this guy really had it planned out. Cops arrested Clark along with his 2 altar servers. So you can see him here in the pictures. There are mugshots. 41-year-old Mindy Dixon and 23-year-old Melissa Chang, and booked them on obscenity charges. I later heard that they actually dropped the charges on the 2 women because they were just being paid to come there. They're like, hey, I didn't know. He said the church was cool.
No pun intended.
Yeah. The women reportedly told cops they were at the church to film role play with the priest. Cops determined that everything went on that night was consensual, but the rest of the trio on obscenity charges because they were in view of the public. Because, I mean, this guy, I don't know. I think he had a wish here to get busted. I really do. NOLA.com added that Dixon, who is also an adult film actress, had posted on social media a day prior that she was traveling to New Orleans area to meet up with another dominatrix to defile a house of God. The Archbishop of New Orleans Archdiocese visited the church to perform a ritual that would restore the sanctity of the altar. Man, there ain't no going back on that altar, man.
Oh, a can of Lysol. You know?
I don't know. I don't know if there's enough holy water for that. Clark, who was ordained in 2013, was suspended from the Archdiocese after his arrest. That's pretty much it they got for the article. But man, I mean, I'm.
You hear all, you know, I mean, the looks
like, hey, sorry, man. That's actually not his mugshot. I should have had his mugshot up here. His mugshot, he looks a lot more like, oh man. But like, you know, he could have done it anywhere. So why pick the altar? Why, you know, people could look through the windows. What I mean, I guess it was just the thrill. He wanted to do that. But if you want to get attached entities, this is probably a good way to start. You're a priest doing a threesome dominatrix thing on an altar, you know, in a church. Yeah, that's you're gonna get some.
At least
might get some. At least attached entities or STDs or both.
Yeah,
I think the STDs are probably guaranteed. If not an attached entity, you can have a lot of problems. You're gonna have a bad time. All right, let's move on.
At least it wasn't 2 altar boys.
I wasn't gonna go there, Rob. I wasn't gonna go there.
I won't say anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you know. All right. Speaking of, vandalizing holy places, this guy maybe had this next one maybe had some good intentions at least. Unlike the priest, there's no good intentions there. None at all. All right. So this one I got on Coast to Coast. I think the original article was from the town is from man accused of vandalizing cemetery in attempt to resurrect his grandmother. A Tennessee man is accused of causing a staggering $30,000 in damage to a cemetery in what he told police was a bid to resurrect his late grandmother. The bizarre report reportedly occurred on Monday evening when cops in the city of Knoxville responded to a call about some vandalism in the church cemetery. When they arrived on the scene, they discovered several broken gravestones as well as numerous puzzling holes that had been dug in the ground. Fortunately, it did not take long for cops to track the case, as they were quickly led by a witness to a man named Danny Frazier. When questioned by police, he promptly admitted that he had been behind the brazen act of vandalism and offered a rather strange reason for what he had done. Coroner Frazier, his actions had actually come from an altruistic place, as he was trying to resurrect his grandmother, who passed away 8 years earlier and is buried at the cemetery. While authorities presumably understood the pain of the missing lost loved one, the long arm of the law was understandably less forgiving, and Frazier was subsequently charged with felony counts of vandalism and trespassing. Making the matter worse, it appears that the man's attempt to bring his grandmother back to the realm of the living proved futile, costing what he would have been a valuable character witness at his trial. That said, one assumes that Frazier's resurrected Mima would not have been too thrilled at the damage he did to the cemetery, so perhaps was the best she continues to rest in peace. Why all the multiple? Like, did he forget which grave was his grandmother's and he can't read? I don't understand why you broke gravestones, or was it like a fit of rage because it didn't work and you start breaking headstones?
Or he just brought like a front end loader in there and ran everything.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my guess on that one.
I mean, I've
Got
had
really
few
high.
had a few grandmothers pass away and they're buried. I've never had the urge to go dig them up.
Yeah, you
Call
don't
me
know.
weird.
A couple A balls and some cocaine and crack, and
Next thing you know, I'm in the graveyard naked digging up my grandma. Woo!
trying to resurrect grandma. Brought the book of the Necronomicon with me. It was gonna work. Everything went to hell, and I just started busting graves. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think grandma would have been the best shape 8 years later.
No.
Maybe she came of that sooner. I don't know. We got through really fast on the World Wide Web. I didn't mean to, because I got this last article I want to get to because I really want to do this. And so we'll spend some time on this next one, though. I also wanted time on this one. This is video footage from Ring Camera. We're getting a lot of this, Oh, wait. Never mind. I'm on the wrong one. Sorry. Way ahead. This one. Sorry. This is just some poor ghost looking out his window going, why is that guy wrecking the something? No, not the same story. Now my articles won't load. God bless it.
Speaking of the Necronomicon, this thing right here kind of looks like the face on the Necronomicon.
Off to the side? Yeah, kind of.
Right.
It's really the ghost in the theme there. Maybe somebody using Necronomicon to bring it back. And I think this was taken over a year ago, but it was recently published. This is an apparition or trick-alike. Ghost photographed at old Scottish cemetery from Unexplained Mysteries here. Eerie image taken at abandoned stone hut appears to show what looks like a face peering out. Posted on Reddit, of course, so take that with a grain of salt. Chuck's photographer goes by the username Motorbike1984. The photograph reportedly shows a dilapidated stone hut at a Scottish cemetery in Largs, if that's how you say it. The ghostly face wasn't visible at the time, but only showed up after the photo was developed. The photographer remains adamant that the photograph has not been tampered with and notes that it cannot be a double exposure because the movement of the leaves has not been similarly captured. Most people I know have seen it say it's very interesting. That's why I posted online. That's how all ghost photos go. Oh, it's very interesting. Some of these various expressions in the supposed face of the photo, some try to explain. However, any explanation I've heard so far can be easily countered with various arguments. As for whether or not the photograph shows a ghost, he remains somewhat open-minded. I do not hold beliefs, religious or otherwise, he said. I see everything as bias or probability. The picture was taken with a TLR Rolleiflex made in the 1930s on a FOMA 400 film in Scotland's ruins park near prehistoric 2000 to 3000 BC burial ground in the fall of 2016. Only scanned and cropped. The faces in the window is visible on the negative film as well. I only have the article photo of it. It's not pareidolia. It's definitely somebody's face. Either somebody's standing there or it's really a ghost captured on photo. I don't know. It seems a little off or odd too. Just looking at it. Like it's almost all not there. I don't know, but you're looking through an old window. So I don't know. But we love the ghost stuff. Let's go ahead and move on to the Ring Camera one, because this one's I think I got about a minute on this video here. I'll read the article before I play the video. This is from dailystar.co.uk. Homeowner was left terrified when she rewatched security camera to find a ghost peeking around the barn outside her house at night. Another Reddit one. Reddit user Crazy Turtula Mama from Washington, U.S. was convinced that whatever spirit was lurking around the ranch and that even her horse was alerted to it. She wrote in a post, "Can you see in the beginning the ghost in the upper right corner? Even the horse in the middle left by the tree turns to look at it." I don't know if you can really see the horse in this video. I don't remember the horse. Maybe I missed that. The home security camera video she shared, a human-like figure appears to come out from behind the ranch and stay in the dark for a few seconds. It then vanishes into thin air when the horse, which is standing behind a tree, appears to look up to its left. The user said no one was out at the property at the time, and the gates were locked. Some viewers said the figure appeared to be translucent from the CCTV. Well, that can happen because it's so far back. A lot of things can appear translucent because they're going just out of the IR light. The more I look at it this frame by frame, the more I think it's actual ghost. It even appears to be translucent at one point. Wow, this is intriguing. I'd love to see a daytime comparison video clip, somebody commented. All right, let's go ahead and roll this footage. I don't know if you can make it bigger or not. It's going to be off to the right there, and I zoom in on it. There we go. It looks kind of like somebody in a robe, or I don't know. And then I do like a negative on this. I kind of give it a negative effect to try to bring it out more. Where's the horse she's talking about? I don't remember a horse or seeing a horse. Where's the horse at she's talking about? Do you see a horse? Maybe. Oh, it's in between the trees. You really can't see the horse very well. But that I don't know. I mean, it could be a person that she didn't know was on her property. It has like it almost like it glows. I mean, I guess it's IR light, but the way it is, it's really weird. It'd be great to see some height comparison too to see what it is. There's the zoom in's coming up again.
Yeah, I see the horse in the trees.
It's really weird. I don't know.
And then she disappears into the dark. She's like wearing a thing outside because it's windy. And then it's dark. The wind.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if on IR light, somebody's out in the distance, they might kind of be in and out of it, but there's almost a glowing look to it, though. It's kind of odd. It does, but I wouldn't think from that distance it's going to really look like that.
Especially depending on the color that she's wearing. Black sometimes will actually glow like white. It's weird.
It seems like it's a robe or something that they're wearing, but it's so distorted.
Like a shawl. Like
so distorted, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Like it kind of waves in the wind.
And then like the dark of the trees like blowing too, like the shadows going over her, and then her thing blowing.
It's kind of weird right at the beginning that like the horse is just there, and then as soon as this thing appears, you can see the horse's tail and stuff over here, like he's getting nervous.
Yeah. Something spooking him.
Yeah, they'll start making noises and getting upset.
I mean, where the horse is, size comparison, it looks like it would be pretty tall too, whatever's out there. I think. And it's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought this was really interesting. It's Reddit, so take that with a grain of salt. But I thought this was really interesting, and it's getting close to Halloween. Yay! All right, we'll move on to the last one. So I got enough time for this one because it's from mysteriousuniverse.org, who I love, and then by Brent Swancer, great writer. I've talked about this on the show a lot. I've mentioned this little snippet of information about Lady Gaga over the years. And I've seen little pieces, articles, little things about this, about her being stalked by ghosts and her hiring paranormal investigators. Well, Brent Swancer put a really good article just this week, and it fits perfectly for show's topic tonight. Lady Gaga and Her Ghostly Stalker by Brent Swancer on mysteriousuniverse.org. Hauntings and ghostly encounters have happened to people from all walks of life and ages. There seems to be no one above the occasional paranormal experience, and such tales are extremely widespread. Yet, what really captures imagination, gets people listening, is when these things happen to well-known persons, as well as the show Celebrity Ghost Stories. And this is surely the case with the ghostly adventures of the pop star called Lady Gaga. There's perhaps no more famous pop singer in the world of music than Lady Gaga. The mega famous songstress was born in New York, blah, blah, blah. We'll skip past that part. By the age of 4, she had hardly taught herself to play piano. By high school, she was already writing songs. At the age of 19, she managed to land. I think we all know who Lady Gaga is. Let's see if we can skip to the good stuff. All right. Along the way, Lady Gaga has drawn around herself a reputation as being a bit eccentric, to say the least. She famously wore a dress fashioned as a meat suit, or just old meat, in the 2010 MTV music videos. We know that. I want to skip past that. We get to the good stuff. All right. So let's talk. This all began during her Monster Ball World Tour 2009 and 2011. During, she says, a spirit that she calls Ryan attached itself to her and apparently followed her home. Or followed her around everywhere she went. The ghost would apparently follow her all over the world and cause all manner of trouble and mischief for the star, to the point that she had seances and exorcism to try to get rid of Ryan, to apparently little no effect. One of her touring crew would say of her session in fear of this ghost, she's been telling us all for months that she has a male spirit called Ryan who travels the world with her. She's pretty terrified by the spirit, but more than anything, he's annoying her as he won't leave her alone. He hasn't been doing anything too violent or scary, but she's freaked out by his presence. She is a very spiritual person and in tune with the spiritual world, but this is a step too far even for her. She contacted a spirit medium and organized a seance so she could communicate with him and tell him to go away. She gathered all of her friends over the weekend in Belfast, Ireland, and held a seance to find out what he wants. She's convinced she picked this up as a bad omen. Although most of her friends were skeptical, they agreed to take part. She believes in paranormal activity and won't take any risk when she's on the road. It's important for her to be safe from spirits. Lady Gaga has never been very clear on just who Ryan is supposed to be or why he has chosen to haunt her, but she has apparently become so scared of him that she's hired at great expense her own personal team of paranormal investigators, real life Ghostbusters, to check out every room she stayed at on the tour to make sure Ryan wasn't around. To help them along, she allegedly spent an estimated $50,000 on state-of-the-art electromagnetic field detectors used for detecting ghosts, as well as money needed to transfer the heavy equipment from one place to the other or all over the world. In addition to her strong belief in the spirit world, she's also made other strange paranormal claims, such as that she believes herself to be the reincarnation of her dead aunt. She has said this. This is an interesting story too. My father's sister Joanne died when she was 19, and he was 16. And then when my mother was engaged to marry my father, they were staying in his house where he grew up, and a light came into the room and touched her stomach and went away. She believes that Joanne came into the room and sort of okayed her for my dad, and Joanne's transferred her spirit into my mom. This is one of the stories she's talked about, son Joanne. But again, I've talked about this for years about Lady Gaga's attached spirit and her hiring paranormal best. I've heard it through the rumors through the paranormal world that she does. Joining us now, I just want to make sure her connection is good before we get to the show, is our guest. How you doing tonight, Rita?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. Glad you're here and I can hear you. We're about ready to go to commercial break, but I don't know if you've seen this or heard about this. We're going to talk about attached entities, and I'm covering in my news story Lady Gaga and her stalker spirit. Have you ever heard about that?
Not attached to Lady Gaga, no.
Yeah, she's hired paranormal teams. She spent $50,000 on equipment, had them follow her all over the world because she believes the spirit named Ryan's attached to her. And I don't know, she's mixed around with some pretty eccentric people, so I wouldn't be surprised if she has a spirit attached to her. We've talked, and many guests talk about Lady Gaga, Satan. I don't know, but that's it for the World Wide Web Weird. Our guest tonight, Rita. How your last name? Louise. Dr. Rita Louise. She's going to be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird, but we got to go to commercial break. And we'll open up the phone lines after the second commercial break. You can call and save it till then because we want to get to talk to our guests, and we're going to talk about attached entities. She has a book, Dark Angel, an insider's guide to ghosts, spirits, and attached entities. I've had my own experiences. I know many of you in the chat room and people who've called in have had their own spirit attachment problems at times. So listen in. We might all learn something tonight. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is now available on PennantPublication.com, Amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Dr. Rita Louise. We're going to talk about attached entities. That's the subject tonight. I know we've had a lot of people with that experience. She is the best-selling author, founder of Institute of Applied Energetics, the host of the Just Energy radio show. She's a naturopathic physician and a 20-year veteran in the human potential field. Her unique gift as a medical intuitive and clairvoyant illuminates and enlivens her work. She's the author of books Stepping Out of Eden, E.T. Chronicles, What Myth and Legend Have to Say About Human Origin, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, Dark Angels and Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities, and the Power Within. She's produced a number of video feature-length videos as well as video shorts. Titles include iKon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients, Holy Deception, Ancient Aliens, Genetic Engineering, and the Rise of Civilizations, The Truth About the Nephilim Giants, Deceit, Lies, and Deception, the Reptilian Agenda, Paranormal Phenomenon, Attached Entities, The Bad Kids of the Spirit World, Ghost and God and Myth, The Secret to the Law of Attraction, and Reincarnation. Have we been here before? A lot. There's a lot to dig into there. We're talking about attached entities. You know how it is on Paranormal Soup. Sometimes we go down other rabbit holes, but there's a lot we got to get to with this guest tonight. And I know a lot of you are asking about calling in. It will be later in the show. We'll do it after this, the next commercial break. We'll definitely open the phone lines, but let's go ahead and get to our guest. Hi, welcome to the show, Rita. Oh, hold on one second. I swear I forgot to unmute you. That's bad. Sorry. Now you can talk. Get it off to a great start. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to spending time with you and your listeners.
Well, as many you'll hear, I'll reference. I like to talk about my own personal experiences in relationship to my guests. So you are a big one for me because what got me started really into the paranormal field was an attached entity experience. Some people call it a shadow person experience. Some people would say it was demonic. I really don't know, but it was something that terrorized me for 4 months. Almost 5 months when I was 18. I first encountered it when I was 17. It really terrorized me when I was 18 and drove me to the brink and made me a complete believer that people can have attached entities. What for you got you into this, into the paranormal field? I mean, obviously you cover a long range of subjects and topics, but what got you down this path?
So I'd always wanted to be psychic when I was a kid. And so started reading books about psychic abilities and intuition and ESP and personal growth and development, which really didn't make me psychic, but I thought it might. And found the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them for 2 years. And so it wasn't part of the training, but there was an opportunity with them to do what they called house healings. And so you would go into someone's home, kind of do a walkthrough and a psychic investigation on the property, and then do energy work on the property to clear it. So we didn't like smudge or do holy water. We just used energy medicine. And so you'd go into these houses, and sometimes there were spirits, sometimes there were vortexes, sometimes there were issues with actually the land that the property was on. Like there was, I hate to say the word cursed, but there was just like some funky bad mojo, just on the physical property, or residual energy from old tenants, so there was just a variety of things that you would experience and then do clearing on. And so I ended up moving to Texas and was contacted by a ghost hunting group, Metroplex Paranormal Investigations. And this was like a really long time ago. This is before the whole ghost hunting boom even took off. And started working with them as their psychic. And so, that's kind of how I got into the whole ghost hunting thing. When talking about attached entities, and I talk about this in the book, Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide, I had my own attached entity, except, and we're going to get into a whole conversation because my definition of an attached entity is, I think, different than yours. So I had an attached entity for pretty much my whole life and finally got rid of it maybe 10 years ago.
Really? So
Yeah.
you remember you experiences from childhood. I this is my thing on attached entities. Probably my first experience with an attached entity, I didn't know because I was a kid. I was a little kid. I had my mom's unborn daughter I would talk to and see. She had a psychic. It's a long story, but a psychic told her, "Oh, you know that little girl your son talks to all the time? That's your unborn daughter you miscarried." She didn't know anything about my mom. Didn't know her at all. And my mom relayed this to me years later, and I'm like, "No, there was a real little girl I played with at the apartment." She's like, "There was never a little girl. I remember." You know, that's a innocent attachment. You know, she was probably with me for a long time. Still is.
That's where we kind of run into some semantic, in my opinion.
True.
Okay. So, you know, if there's ghosts hanging around, you know, like I had Tom that lived in my backyard. He was a shadow spirit. He lived in my backyard. I saw him. My ex-husband saw him. The kids saw him. And then it started getting weird because friends that would come over would see him. And they'd be like, there's somebody in your backyard. And I'm like, it's just Tom, you know, but that's just a ghost.
Right.
Okay. An attached entity, I like to call them the narcissists of the spirit world. And what they do,
yeah.
And so if there's something going on in you individually, and there's a situation that happens and you get triggered, the entity will come in and actually try to take over and will like put thoughts in your head and behaviors into you to manipulate you so that they keep your energy bad,
right?
So that they can control, you know. And so, you know, having a little kid that you're playing with is not
It's
an
different.
entity that's trying to control. And so that's where I kind of make a very distinct
Right.
separation, because usually people that have attached entities don't even know they have one. There's not a recognition because, you know, either it's part of them or there's some other situation that's going on that allows the spirit in. But usually there's an assumption that what you're feeling and what you're experiencing internally is you. And you don't go like, oh, well, there's this guy standing over here and he's talking to me. You know, it's
it's the inner
more
voice.
Correct.
It's the inner voice they manipulate. Yes. I had that with the shadow person. It got in my head. It got in my dreams. It got in everything. And I could see it physically. It tried to get me to either hurt other people or kill myself. It was a horrendous experience. And I feel blessed by God to have gotten out of it, because I really think I had a miracle happen that made it go away. And it made me have faith in God.
And it just makes me wonder what was going on with you personally that might have opened the door to allow it in. Because usually it's like we have something bad going on. You know, we have bad mojo, our own.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's sick. There's, you know, some issue going on in our life. And so our personal vibration is low, which opens the door to let the spirit in. So I just wonder for you if there was some life experiences. Oh yeah, I've had people do that.
I totally was a stupid teenager when I first encountered this thing, you know, when I was 17 and then 18, when I really stupidly, it was at a spot where I didn't know at the time a bunch of people had died. Me and two other people had experienced this shadow figure in these woods where people would party. And we went out to confront it the night after Halloween. And I challenged it. I said, come on, show yourself, bring yourself. Because we were having dreams about this place. And that's why we went there separately from a year later after we were out there Halloween before and had experience. We all had dreams leading up to that night. And I invited it. And my two other friends, you know, I don't think they really invited, so it didn't hurt them as bad, but it messed with them too for going out there. They had experiences. We were all getting freaked out. It's a long story. You can go read it in Mike Ricksecker's book. I wrote what his ghostly encounters do. I wrote it all out. It's the longest story in there. But it changed my life. It changed my complete perspective. And I asked for it. I really did, because I was a negative, dark, curmudgeon teenager. And I asked for the darkness, and I got it. And I learned my lesson.
Well, you know, it's interesting, you know, so I was part of Metroplex doing the home evaluations and whatever. But in my private practice, so, you know, for my day job, I do intuitive readings, health. I do a lot of health work with people. And so I would have clients that would contact me and they would have these entity attachments. And so my basis in writing that book and experiencing, there was my own personal experience, but then there's my experience working with a lot of people, helping them do spirit release, and that is one of the ways spirits can attach is, I like to put it in kind of air quotes, you invite them in. Yeah. So I've had clients who did automatic writing, and so they would be trying to connect with spirit. And so they would connect with a spirit, but usually they have bad mojo and they're in a bad place in their life. And that's why they're looking for this guidance. And they start doing the automatic writing, the spirit communicates with them, and then the whole thing turns around and becomes very negative and manipulating. And now they've got this entity attached because they invited it in.
What about, I see that as a paranormal investigator. I've gotten that a ton from people. Oh, well, it happened after. I'm like, anything, I go down the whole laundry list of questions, and plenty of times we don't get very far in the question, find out, we did a Ouija board. and I'm like, okay, well, let's start with that because that's a good possibility. But there's people that, I don't want to say, because I know I have family members in that. I have a family member once, many, many years ago, that moved into a rental apartment house. And him and his wife at the time and their young son, they were having they would catch their son talking to somebody. So we're talking about a spirit, right? Like a ghost. Their son would be talking to him. They'd hear weird things, but it started to get real personal. And they would both, they came together after I said, you guys need to talk and compare notes. And when they did, it got really scary because they both admitted that when they would give their son a bath, both of them heard voices, that little inner voice, tell them to drown their son. That was it. They got out. Once they admitted that to each other, they were done. Because and it's a hard thing to admit. But I said, you guys really got to talk this out because something dark is here. I felt it the moment I was in their house. And so they talked it out, and that was it. They got out. But, they didn't invite it in. They moved in. So can somebody get these kind of attachments from moving into a location too?
But see, it's not attached then.
To them. They left. They left. It never followed, right? So
and it didn't fall. So to me, technically, it's not attached. But if you there are so many people. It's like, oh well, I'm having these issues in this house, but then you ask their history, and it's like, well, they had issues in the last house, and they had issues in the house before. Now those people, that's when I would start looking for an attached entity because it's not the house, it's them. They're bringing their own ghosts with them. Oh yeah. I think paranormal investigators that have their own little attachments sometimes, it can influence your investigation. Because I've had some investigators. Oh, that's my guardian spirit or whatever. I'm like on the EVP. I'm like, okay, but I don't want your spirit. I want the spirit we're investigating here. I think there's different levels of kinds of attachments. Good attachments, I guess, spirit guides you can see. But the level of attachment you're talking about is deep rooted in the person's energy. Like it's that, it has to be able to, I guess, talk to you in that inner voice. That's really a key. That's a dangerous thing for something to have that ability to talk to you in your inner voice. So my experience, and I'll just use me, for example, mine attached when I was really young. And so for me, it was natural. It was normal. And so there is not any differentiation between this is my inner voice and this is the voice of the spirit. Right. When you're older and you recognize your own inner voice and you hear this other voice, you can differentiate easier, better, that there's something wrong. There's something going on. Now, was yours negative? Like you said you had this Does that answer your question? No. Yeah. It was really bad. I mean, it didn't tell me to try to kill anybody, but it was very self-deprecating. Extremely. Well, maybe some play the long game, and mine knew it only had a short amount of time with me, and that's why it went on full blast on me, because it knew its time was limited. I don't know, because I really feel I was saved by my ancestors, like my great grandfather. I really saw him come into my room and save me the night this thing left. So I feel I got very lucky. Yeah, and I basically said, "God save me," And I'm not a Christian. I'm not anything. I just believe in God. After that point, because I said, God, please help me. And literally bright light, this thing shrieked and was gone. Mhm.
And so I had an
Well, and
attachment
getting
like
rid
that,
of them
but
can be, you know, I don't want to say it's in every case, but it, once the decision is made to get rid of the spirit, it is possible to just like banish it.
it also could
but
be when it
usually,
gets really nasty too.
well, sometimes if they're really nasty, they don't want to go, especially
Right,
if you're a good host.
I've now we had a guest on, Terrence Palmer. Dr. Terrence Palmer had a book on the science of spiritual possession, and he really creeped me out when he would talk about it as energy fields, and that these were almost parasitic, which is what I felt like my thing was. It was feeding off my fear and misery.
Mhm.
And he said these things would, they like it. He what he said was reproduction. They were doing this for reproduction. They would leave these energy, like they would even leave eggs in your auroric field or something like that. I'm like, that creeped me out. That creeped me out. But
Okay.
but it distilled that the fact that I think these things are something that's parasitic.
I mean, in the way that I identify an attached entity, they are very parasitic, because they're the ultimate energy vampires, except they don't have bodies, and so, I mean, that's their goal, is to control and manipulate your energy so that you are vibrate, and they suck on very specific energy vibrations, and so if you're really lonely, or if you're in a certain place, then that's what will get attracted to you, because it's this long-term programming, and they will suck off of that energy vibration and then try to create situations to get you back into that place so that you'll be at that energy vibration again.
Now, are these, when we talk about attached entities, are these past spirit, are these spirits, or are these something else, or is it all the above? What usually are attached entities?
So this has been my experience. So there are definitely entities of individuals who have died. I would make the assumption that based on their personality, they have not crossed over. So my belief is, you die and then you have the opportunity to like go into the light and cross over and go to heaven or wherever you go, which I'm not even going to talk about. But then there are ones that are much more earthbound, and so they don't have the opportunity to let go of their negativeness or the things that they are keeping them here on Earth. And so I would say that that's the vast majority of the spirits that I've interacted with. However, I have interacted with spirits that I call alien entities. They might have like humanoid form, but they don't look like, they're not people. Like I had this devil guy, which he kind of looked like, not the Flash, but the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four, except not as cool. But he just had like these flames everywhere.
Wow.
That was the devil guy. I've had several. I had this lady, and this was one of the creepiest one. Are you a Trekkie at all? I have to go there because this is like the easiest way. So Star Trek Next Generation, there was the episode where Data kept having this dream of him like with a straw sucking out of like,
that one gives me the creeps.
And then finally he like realizes what's going on, and there's like these amoebas on them, and it was.
Isn't that the one where Troy was a cake? Like,
yes,
it was like peptide cake. Do you want some peptide cake or something like that? It was, it was creepy. Data dreaming, right? It was data dreaming,
right?
And it's his computer brain trying to solve these interdimensional things he was seeing on people's necks, right?
Right.
Like, yeah.
And so this lady had these like giant amoeba things. Ooh. It was disgusting, and I'm like doing energy work on. and it was literally leaving divots in
physical
her muscle. Yes. Ooh. It wasn't like, something would happen and she'd have this big divot, but over time it was just degrading the muscle, so there's God. Me. I'm very visual. And so I'm like working on it, and there are these amoeba things, and I didn't want to touch them. Even in my mind's eye, I didn't want to touch them. So I'm like energy working her with a stick. It's like, and And usually, you know, I don't have an issue doing energy work on people. Whenever I finished with her, it was like the first thing I would do is go into the restroom and go wash my hands really good because it was like, oh, that was disgusting. So let's see. And then I've only had one case, I'm going to say one case, where I had a client who actually had a full body possession. And it was this like giant worm thing that was in his body, which was disgusting with giant teeth. Yeah. I had
reminds me of Poltergeist too. But when he drinks the worm and it comes out. But yeah, let's see. What I loved about Star Trek is, we just were talking about it last week because I had an alien. We're talking with Gavin Lee Davies about his book Harvest, an alien abduction, and I always thought, you ever seen the episode Schism?
What is it about?
That's one where they're taking Worf and mainly Riker, and they're taking other crew members through an interdimensional hole, and they don't remember. Then they all start piecing it together. It's like it was Star Trek Generations, like call out to abduction. I really feel it was, and I think even Jonathan Frakes confirmed that in an interview once. But they did so many episodes like that. If you think about what they're it's interdimensional. It's like they're explaining things that could be good explanations for paranormal activity that's happening here right now in the 21st century. You know, I always thought that, wish we had a tricorder. You know,
well, I mean, that's one of the things I love about Star Trek is that it's given, I'm going to say, the paranormal community, and I don't mean just the ghost community, but when you're talking about multiple dimensions and vibrational frequency and, time-space continuums.
Yeah.
They give you vocabulary and people get it.
Yeah. Compared to a Trek episode, at least us Trekkies are going to get it, Oh,
Which is a lot of people.
Oh yeah, my first ghost hunting, like when we created our first ghost hunting group, all the three main guys, and except for one guy, Ricky, he's still in it. He's a Star Wars guy, not a Star Trek guy. I got Star Wars too, but the other three guys were all Trekkies. We're all like, all science officer on duty. I love it. Star Trek definitely is my favorite science fiction, and definitely wish I had a tricorder because maybe we could explain some of these weird things going on. When you talk about the lady having divots and seeing these things, you have to wonder how many people might have things that are interdimensional that are affecting them like this, causing illnesses, things we can't explain. And it's something parasitic from a dimension we can't see.
Well, and the interdimensional ones are actually the most interesting. And then, plus with that one lady, there was like these giant like forceps coming in through a portal, and that's what was picking at her skin. It was like little alligator clips.
Oh God, what the heck, man?
I don't.
It's like, see, that's like an interdimensional. Like, we need to harvest our little slug bug things on people in the dimension 4 Earth, and like to put them on somebody and come and harvest them. I don't know. Oh wow, that's creepy.
But I've had several people that have had interdimensional beings. So there was her. I had a lady who. And it's just so weird. And you like start talking to the person like, well, this is what I'm noticing. And they're like, oh, yeah.
Like whoosh, over my head. Probably for most people.
They totally get it. They totally get it. Like
it's
I
like
had
something
this
in
lady.
Is it something like, I'm sorry. Is it something like in their gut that they instinctively know?
Well, it's what they experience, but they don't really want to say, well, this is what I'm experiencing because it's too weird and this doesn't go with our reality at all. Like I had this lady that had bugs, like dragonflies or some kind of bugs that would fly around her auric field. And, so this is me trying to catch these bugs, but they would like come in through a vortex and kind of fly around for a while, and then they'd fly out, and you'd clear space out, and they'd open the vortex back up and come back in. The interdimensional ones are the worst. They're next to impossible, in my opinion, to clear. Because it just takes a lot of time because it's not getting rid of the spirit or the entity or whatever the weird stuff going on in their space is. It's getting the portal to close.
Oh, well, how does somebody get an interdimensional entity attached to them?
Probably in the same way you get any other kind of entity attachment.
I've always described my experience because people are like, well, it's a demon. I'm like, I don't know if it's a demon. It felt very alien-like to me. And I had years later, I've realized that there is a connection to some alien stuff that might be connected to it. So I don't know, but I was like, it's something interdimensional. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's a demon, but it felt alien to me is all I can say. It didn't feel like it was ever a human of any kind. So, I mean, it could be demon, alien, semantics.
I mean, in my experience, I've never interacted with what I would call a demon. There were some that were really yucky and negative and overwhelming, but when they have little horns and like pitchforks and it's like people are people, dead people are dead people with, and if they're an attached entity, they're dead people with an attitude. And the closest thing to a demon are some of these alien entities that you can't put. All right, another Star Trek thing.
Nope, I love it.
Okay,
it's great.
Okay, so if you have a deceased human entity attached to you, it speaks human, and so if you're interacting with them, trying to clear them, it's like you can kind of try to figure out what their story is, where they came from, what they want, and communicate with them using human feelings to get rid of them. But if they're an alien entity, they don't speak human. They speak Klingon. They speak, and we don't have a universal translator.
Right.
And so you're trying to interact with them, but they don't care because their values are not our values. What they want is not what we want. I had a client, the devil guy with the flames everywhere. I'm trying to communicate with this spirit and I'm really not getting anywhere because it's the freaking devil guy. And so finally I get this message, and what I was getting was, I want her to come with me. And I'm like, what do you mean you want her to come with you? It's like, well, I want her to come with me. And so I couldn't quite figure out what that meant. And then finally, like, this little light bulb went on in my mind. I don't know if it was from him or just I like connected the dots. And I looked at my client and I said, did you ever try to commit suicide? And she said, twice. He wanted her to go with him. She couldn't go in physical body.
Yeah.
So he wanted her to kill herself so she could go with him.
That's kind of like my shadow person. It would take me at night. It would take me on my body, show me the worst things to make me want to kill myself, and expose me to things I could never talk about. And it would laugh and everything. It had an evil laugh. I don't know if that was a laugh or what it was. It was weird, and it would take me on my body and show me things. And it was like, you're coming with me every night. And I felt that's what it wanted me to eventually do, is just permanently come with it. And I was not having it.
All right, that's yucky.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I didn't feel like it was human. I couldn't recognize it as a human spirit or anything. And it was associated with a bunch of deaths on these train tracks that were really weird. That happened. People just died on these, would get just torn to pieces on these train tracks, and mysteriously why they were there or how it happened, it would just be really weird. So I've never understood it. Many years later, I've still never understood all the weird synchronicities with it. Killed my cat. It just very negative. And like I said, when people come to me and say, I think I have a negative spirit attached to me, or it's dark stuff, I'm a believer. I will listen, because once you've experienced it, anything's possible.
Oh, exactly. And I get a lot of emails about doing spirit release work. And you can also tell when people just are down on their luck and they want to blame it on an entity. It's like, well, I lost my job, blah, 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 blah. My life sucks. It's like, but you can't blame everything on having an entity attached to you. I mean, there are situations that happens, but not all the time. Sometimes we have to take personal responsibility. One of the things that I kind of joke around about, a number of years ago, in the metaphysical community, everyone blamed all of their life problems on their past lives. It's like, well, you know, my past life, you know, something must have happened. And so now this life I have karma. And so that's why my life sucks, or I can't get, you know, find somebody to be in a relationship with, and, you know, past life, you know, and people are like, well, can you look at my past lives? It's like, hon, you got enough to deal with in this lifetime that we need to fix before you need to start looking at past life stuff. But I feel like people have moved from that concept of like, I'm going to blame all of my woes on a past life to now I have an entity attachment.
Well, you know, I've always felt that kind of that way. I mean, we've talked a lot about past lives on here, and I've had my experience with past lives, but for me, it was awakening to who I really am, like not karma or anything, but who I am deep down, why I'm wired the way I am. Two very visual dreams I had, I believe, were past life experiences were that. I see a lot of that with, and I'm not trying to knock on any on Christianity or that, but some of the deliverance ministries, like what's that? There's one it's been doing it for years. I can see him with a red beard. I can't think of his name, but I'll see him do one of his sessions of deliverance or whatever, or exorcism. It's not really exorcism. I don't think you'd say that. I can't think of his name. It's driving me nuts. But like, you know, like you have a demon of cigarette addiction. You have a, you know, like there's a demon for like every like pain, illness, addiction, everything. They're all demons. I'm like, really? I mean, I'm open-minded. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe there is a demon for every addiction and pain and illness, whatever, but it seems like a bit of a stretch. But these people do. I don't know if it's mass hypnosis, but people are like, oh, the demon of cigarettes coming out of me. You know, I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm just saying that either that's true or it's mass hypnosis on people. But it's hard for me to believe that every little illness is caused by some kind of a demonic attachment.
I agree. I was going to say something. Oh, many years ago, when I first released the Dark Angels and Insiders Guidebook, I was doing an interview on a show much like this. It was a ghosty kind of show. And the hosts of the show, which unbeknownst to me, going to do the interview, their belief was you can be alive. And if you experience things in an alternate world, like a ghost, it's a demon.
Oh, yeah. I've had guests on that believe that.
Because when you die, you go to heaven or you go downstairs. And so there's no room in the universe for ghosts to be dead relatives or something, you know? And so they automatically call anything like that a demon when it could be Aunt Sally.
Right. Some of the most of the stories I get are loved ones that come through to people. When people are like, oh, I get the haunted house. Oh, I live in a house. But most of the time when people tell me something, it's like, oh, my Aunt Sally passed away and then this happened and she appeared to me, or it's something really powerful. I mean, beautiful, in my opinion. You know, I think some of the best stories I love are those deep connections people have after somebody's passed on. I've had my own experiences in that. You know, it's not demonic. There's nothing demonic about that, you know, but I've had guests on that. That's their belief. Anything, you know, you don't see ghosts, that's demonic. That's a demon trying to trick you. You know, I don't buy it. I never have. I'm open to discuss and debate, but not my personal belief for sure.
Well, and I think it's important to kind of get that out there because there are people that put that out as what the reality is. And I've had several people in different situations get sorry, I just read that.
Yeah, me too. We'll get to that in a second.
But there are several people that I'll just talk about this one story in particular. So I was at a conference doing a presentation on ghosts or whatever, and it was a ghost conference. And so this one woman was there because she was very concerned because people had told her that the spirit that was hanging around her was demonic and she needed to get rid of it. Well, I kind of took a look at it and she had a twin brother who passed away. And he was hanging around her and watching her and making sure she was okay. And I'm like, babe, it's your brother. He's not a demon, you know? And so before people put that demon labeling, you need to get rid of them. It might be someone there that is looking out for you and watching you and, kind of being your guardian angel.
Yeah, that's what, like I said, I had my mom tell me the experience of me seeing the little girl, that was my unborn sister. I don't think that was negative, that she could still be around me, as far as I know. The guy who commented to Bob Lazar, that's the UFO guy, but it is Bob something. I can't remember the name of the extras. I don't think it's Lazar. Bob Lazar is the UFO Area 51, but it's like that. It is like that, John. It's something close to that. We're on the right track. But yeah, he does those ministries where they cure or they heal people from the demons. I like I said, can't blame everything on demons or attached entities, but there is something here. I've always said there's something unseen affecting us in so many ways we don't understand. And you as you're as a way of healing people of this, or you don't want to say cure, you want to say that, but or releasing these spirits. I mean, doing it, does it have an effect on you? Especially if it's a really negative entity.
No, not really. And I've only had, and I'm going to assume a ghost followed me home once. I have very strict rules.
That's it.
Around what's allowed in my house or not. What I have found in most situations is that there is something inside the person that the spirit is attached to. There's a thought or a belief that they're vibrating. I mean, I don't know if you guys talk about like law of attraction on the show ever, but what we send out, we attract back. And so there's something in us. And so what I help people do is find what that broken thing is that and why you're projecting this energy out, so that this spirit is wanting to be attached to you. Now, I will say that I've worked with a couple of people that their entities were just beyond they needed someone like a demonologist to come in and, deal with them in a very different way. I use a much more psychological approach to interacting with them. But sometimes I understand what I do, and sometimes it is beyond my skill set to interact with them, because sometimes you have to be mean to the spirits to get them to go. And that's just not my thing. I have friends that do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are some things that are, we've seen the cases, we've heard the stories, the entity case. I've had, Dr. Barry Taff on here to talk about, the entity case. And there's some very severe attachments or whatever's going on there that, could be dangerous to those trying to help that person. And I've had exorcists and investigators on that have stuff come into their home, and, their lives even threatened by some kind of entity.
Mm-hmm. And I usually, ones that are that nasty, I usually refer on. Thank God I don't get that many people that have that, that severe of an attachment. But I did have one fairly recently where, this woman said, well, when the entity comes in, it's like her face changes, and she can't go to work because she doesn't look the same. And, and she's going on. And I'm like, and there was an entity, so I wasn't doubting that, but she was in so much fear of what was going on that it was kind of like, I can't help you until you start helping yourself here. But it was too much, it was. And so I referred her to someone else. Well, apparently my friend didn't call her fast enough. And like a week later, I get this phone call.
Oh, geez.
To me on the phone from this woman. And so I call my friend up. I'm like, did you call that lady? And he goes, no. Why? I go, because her entity just called me.
Oh, her entity called you.
It wasn't her,
man.
because she was meek and mild and afraid and withdrawn, like not quiet, but just cautious and tentative. Her entity called and was up my butt.
So did the entity want out of the deal? Like, get me out of this woman. Was that why?
No, it was pissed off because it didn't feel like it was being respected.
Oh.
I mean, it was that
Wow.
nasty,
Narcissistic.
being. Yeah. And once they get past a certain point where they don't want to work with me, and it's kind of like you got to go to someone who's going to be like much more demanding.
Yeah, John, it was Bob Larson. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, Bob Lazar. I know I could mix that up. It's late. I totally forgive you, John, in the chat room. But yeah, Bob Larson. That was the minister I've seen on exorcism, demon specials, and he's like putting a cross on people, and they're, like I said, they have a demon for everything. Obviously there's something going on. Some people are having definite attachments and effects, but not everything's demons, or maybe there are no demons, or semantics. But how much of this is also generational? Like it's something tied to a family. Have you seen that?
Great question. I have seen that. I mean, it's a small percentage of what I've seen. And actually, I talk about that in the book. What I have seen is usually it skips generations, because
Right.
it'll attach to someone and then it will be with that, so let's say it attached to someone when they're in their 20s. And so it'll stay with them. But when that individual is getting old and
Right.
the entity is ready to move on, well, usually their children are 40 years old or whatever, and so they're not young enough to pass it on to someone else.
Right. So it's like it attaches to a person, and then when they either get too old or they die, then it goes to the grandchildren or
Correct.
or great aunts or great
whatever.
Yeah. See, I've always wondered that, because I've had stories and people I've encountered that talk about having a generational spirit in the family, that it goes to like it skips a generation and always follows the women. And I knew somebody that had this in their family, and I talked to their mom and sister about it, and only the women in the family would see it. It was like a hag, but it went generations of people seeing it. I've always wondered, because I'm Irish, I saw a green floating head that like screamed at me when I was 5 with my cousin. He never heard it scream. He saw it, but I could hear the scream in my head, and he didn't. And I always wondered, is that a banshee thing? Because I have a great great grandfather that immigrated from Ireland, and really strong Irish traditions. And my cousin's not. He's on the other side of the family. He never heard the wailing or screaming. He just saw the green floating head. So I've always wondered about generational attachments and hauntings, and how this flows down the family lines. So
I mean,
it just attaches and jumps.
I've only encountered it a couple of times, so I don't think it is a super common thing, so in my experience, dead people, attached entities, definitely, I would say that's the bulk of them. Generational entities, I mean, maybe less than 5%. I think there's more alien entities.
Well, it's very similar, isn't it? Well, no, it's similar in the sense when you talk about generational, how abductees talk about it being in the family line, and it skips people in the family line.
I see what you're saying.
That's what I mean about being very similar in that sense to a generational haunting or something like that.
Yeah, that I could see. But it's interesting because, and I don't know why, because, my working with clients, I go through these cycles of stuff, and I've had one client who was an experiencer. In all my years of doing this work, I've only ever had one. I've been around a bunch of people who were, and so, I don't know if it's because I've never had that experience, and so they're not attracted to me because I'm not at that vibration. I don't really know. So, but, I know enough to like have the conversation about it, but.
Yeah. Well, we've had abductees on this show, and there's paranormal aspects of abductees don't talk about a lot too, that happens in their homes, and stuff that happens, psychokinetic activity related around it. So there's a lot. I named the show Paranormal Soup because I feel like all these things are connected in some way. Aliens to ghosts to Bigfoot to demons to angels. It's all connected in some way in a big soup bowl. But I just feel like there's a connection we don't see, a universal theory for the paranormal or something.
Well, and I think many times that people that see or interact with ghosts or spirits or whatever tend to be more sensitive than the other people around them. So I think that's also a common denominator, because you can have three people go into a room and it's the most sensitive person that's going to see it, feel it, notice it, detect it.
Yeah. I mean, that's me. I mean, I've been experiencing stuff ever since I was a child, and I've had a lot of psychic experiences, and I've seen things that nobody else in the room is seeing, make you feel like you're going crazy, and so, a believer, people being able to see things others don't, because I've been there, done that, bought the shirt, still doing it, but I don't go down the road to want to be a psychic or say I'm a psychic. I just feel like for some reason I have some extra sensory perception than usual, but I think everybody has the ability. It's just if they're using it or not.
Oh, I definitely think everybody has that ability, except for the woman who ran Metroplex Paranormal Investigation. She was so funny. I'm just going to share this story, because I believe that everyone has the ability to detect energy changes in an environment, whether it's a spirit or whatever. And we would go to some of the most funky places, and there would be some spirit standing somewhere who I could feel across a room. I mean, because their presence was just so intense. But I went and, some of the other members were trying to learn what I was doing. And so I would be like, okay, so walk from here to that corner over there. And between here and that corner over there, when you feel something change, if you get cold, you feel a buzzing, a tingling, whatever you're noticing, just stop. And everybody in the group would do that and stop in the same spot, except her. And I would have her go through some of the most intense energy and never experienced anything, which I never could figure out.
Well, I think there's just people like that, though. You hear stories of people, they live in this house and it was super haunted and all this stuff was happening, and you really believe them. It's true. It did happen to them. They move out, somebody moves in. I haven't had anything happen. I believe those people when it happened to them, but I think there's some people are just, they're not feeding the energy. They're not feeling it. And they're also not feeding it either. There's nothing there connecting. Like sometimes I wonder if, the paranormal activity happens or psychokinetic activity, it's got to be two things. It's a place and the energy of the people who interact together to make these weird, crazy things happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that can happen too. The people that are in there can feed into the energy of whatever's there, and amplify it.
Yeah, that like I said, I had Dr. Barry Taff on, and that was kind of his theory on psychokinetic activity. It's people and the location and the interaction. They're the CD, or they're the laser on the CD disc player, or the needle on the record player. The two have to meet to make the activity happen. And some people aren't the needle. They're not going to make the record play, and some people will. It's some energy, and it's something I really think is possible when you hear stories of people moving into a house that like Amityville Horror. I don't know if that was real or not, but people have lived there years and never had anything happen. Maybe because it was fake. Maybe it was because they're not the needle on the record player. I don't know. This is one of the things that's just been speculated about in the paranormal field for many years. What causes that activity? Now, we're almost coming up on a commercial break, but I'm going to leave people hanging on this too. One of the things we talked about, generational hauntings and that, but there's people that claim, you get into the dark entities and attachments. I actually ran into this when I was a teenager. Somebody in my town, a stranger I met, a kid not much older than me, was basically telling me how he was part of, his family was part of a whole satanic ritual abuse, and that they believed in demon possession. They were abused as children to be possessed. And he was actually running away when I talked to this kid. And I didn't know about any of that stuff back. This is before, internet was DSL line. I wasn't getting on the internet and looking up. There wasn't like conspiracy theories about this stuff. It blew me away what this kid was telling me. And years later, I started finding this stuff, it's popping on the internet about ritual satanic abuse and these like cults, secret cults and stuff, and that they would abuse children to get them possessed by a demon from the family. It's crazy stories.
It's a
Have you
deep
encountered
hole.
anything like? Yeah, it is. Have you encountered anybody that suffered ritualistic satanic abuse like that?
So I have not actually spoken to this person, but it's a really good friend of mine's girlfriend, live-in partner, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not married, but they've been together for, oh God, about 15 years now, and so she was part, her parents would take her to these things, and she's pretty messed up, has not been able to have a job, because she's pretty messed up.
Well, it seems there's some people that secretly believe this or whatever, that they're, I mean, you talk about, maybe it's not, say, demons or anything. I mean, you talk about a case like Sybil with multiple personalities being abused by her mother, being locked away in a dark space and then having 23 personalities. There's psychological things that will happen to a child when they're abused like that. But there's also on a spiritual level, that happens, what does this abuse create holes in their energy field, basically, is a theory I've heard.
But yeah, I mean, my whole thing is that when our energy is down, so actually, let me throw this in here first. People that have multiple personality disorder, there's a mental component to it. But my belief is that they have, Sybil had 23 spirits that were hanging around, and they were pretty much doing a full body possession.
See, that's what I wondered about that situation.
Yeah.
So you think that could be just a possession case?
Exactly. So one of the things that happens is that if an entity takes over your body, depending on how deep you will let them penetrate into the auric field and into the body, the person, so like me, I disassociate. So now I'm over there at the mall going shopping or whatever I'm doing. I'm over there thinking about something. And now I have this entity that is pretty much running the show. And so when you get into a multiple personality disorder type situation, instead of just being over here, you're way over there. And so there really is kind of a break, even though the cord's there, that you can get back into the body, and it gives that spirit the opportunity to fully take over and leave that person with no memory of it.
Wow. We're gonna talk. We got to go to commercial break. We're gonna continue on that when we come back, and we will open up the phone lines, guys, when we come back. If you have questions or you want to share your experience, I had some people ask in the chat room if you can tell if they have an attached entity over the phone. We're not. You're doing readings of any kind, or can you tell that over the phone?
I would prefer not to.
Totally understand. There we go. That's your answer to that. So call in with your experiences or ask for advice or questions. Yes, but we're not doing readings tonight, guys. But we will open up the phone lines when we come back from the short commercial break.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHN Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, From ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond, you'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Reincarnation magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranormal Magazine and soon, ParanormalMag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Tired of school? Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife?
Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them, Otis.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Please, Spock, do me a favor, and don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, we're talking to our guest, Dr. Rita Louise. Her website is soulhealer.com if you want to check it out while you're listening. We're talking about attached entities, and we might get into some other subjects tonight. But the phone lines are open. Have you had an entity attachment? I know... I definitely know some of you in the chat room and watching the show or listening have had entity attachments of some kind. You've called in, you've shared. I want you to share again tonight. Share your experiences, ask your questions, but the phone lines are open. Just remember, if you call in, I hang up with you on you because I got somebody else on the line. Or if you call in and you hear us talking, just wait till we call on you. All right, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. So we were talking before we left for break there about multiple personalities. People like Sybil. When I saw that movie, Sybil, I saw that. You remember the old documentary with was it Sally Fields? I think it played her. Oh, let me get. I'm muted. Sorry, but yeah, Sally Fields played. I saw that as a kid, and there's something about that movie that just made my imagination go wild, but also really disturbed me. And I think because part of me wondered the whole time when I was watching it, are they really spirits that are possessing her?
Yeah. I remember seeing the movie and then I ended up reading the book because the movie, it just seemed kind of incomplete to me. At that point in time, I really didn't even know what to think, and I wasn't thinking that it was different spirits. But there is something that's called dissociative disorder, again, where your consciousness leaves. Now, one of the things that's fascinating is they have done tests on individuals who have dissociative disorder, and the blood pressure of the person can change depending on the personality that's in the body. They can need to wear glasses depending on the personality that's in the body. One personality was diabetic, so there are these biochemical changes that happened to the body that if it was just me making it up or this was a totally psychological thing, it would be very, very challenging to make it where you need glasses to see or that your blood pressure would just automatically change. I mean, I could see where, and so there have been studies. And so that leads me to believe that there's something else going on. And it also supports the idea that our thoughts and emotions underlie health issues, and so if the spirit that's coming in, came in with these issues, it's going to affect the way that the body works. So it'll change depending on the person.
It almost, with the people that have had dissociative disorders from child abuse too, it seems like it could be in its way its own generational haunting in a way, because it's like if the parent was abused and they're dissociative disorder in them, they got spirits really in them, and then they do it to the child, so spirits can attach to the child. It becomes this vicious family cycle.
But it might not be the same spirit in this generational
it just lets spirits in.
Yeah, in the generational ones, it's usually the same spirit that passes down. And I think that most people that have attached entities have some kind of a dissociative issue going on. Because now I'm out of the body, and so this entity on some level, depending on how far away I am, is that voice. You let that voice in because you're not totally in charge. But no, and usually, the most common reason people have entities is because of abuse and trauma, early childhood abuse and trauma. Drugs and alcohol play a significant role in people having entities attached. And then asking for it, the Ouija boards, the automatic writing, that's the third kind. And can I just put a little Ouija board disclaimer out there?
Go for it.
People are like, oh, I touched a Ouija board and now I have an entity. Oh, nah, not so much. It's the people. Okay, I'm having a bad period of my life. I don't really know what's going on. I just got let go from a job. My husband just left me. My dog just died. And so now I am asking the spirits, and I'm using the Ouija board to get insights into what's going on and looking to it for guidance. I am looking to it for guidance. But my energy is like down here because I'm in a bad place. I'm in a really bad place.
Right.
And so in asking for that help, we might get a spirit that comes in here, but it's Joe the janitor guy,
Yeah.
And so it seems like a higher vibration than where I am right now. But then things turn around and I go back to my normal self and my regular energy vibration is up here. Well, now you've just invited Joe the janitor in the door. And sometimes it's just hard to get him out.
And he wants to bring you back down to his energy level.
And he wants to bring you back down so that he can control and manipulate you or get you down here, which is even better. And so you end up playing this game until you decide, no, I'm not going to have this vibration anymore, and you kick him out.
Well, I was in a store and there was these two 20-something kids in there, and I was getting rung up, and I heard the one girl go, "I want to try a Ouija board. Let's do a Ouija board tonight." And me and the person ringing me up both turned our heads, and I go, "You're gonna have a bad time," is what came out of my mouth. She said, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that." They're like, "Well, nothing's gonna happen." I'm like, "Then why do it? If you don't believe anything's gonna happen, don't bother with it." But but if something does, then you're gonna find out the hard way. Trust me, you don't want to do it. And they laughed at me. I'm like, "Okay, whatever. Go play with your Ouija board. Go find out." Because you're going to probably have a bad time. Maybe nothing happens, but I think there's a lot of people out there who've had a real bad time. I've talked to plenty of them.
The only time that I've ever tried using a Ouija board, I was in college. I was living in the most haunted house I've ever lived in. It had been the town funeral parlor, unbeknownst to me when I moved in. And, so there was this one spirit that would walk up the stairs and then kind of tap on the hallway going down. The room across the hall from me had been a viewing room.
Oh,
I lived in that apartment for a year. I mean, I had 3 roommates. I lived in that apartment for a year, and literally I went into that room 3 times. And I would go in and I would leave because the energy was just so bad. And the girl that lived in there for the first 6 months, she ended up moving out because she couldn't deal with it anymore. And then the woman that moved in had her own spirits that she brought into the house. So then it just got even crazy.
Well, yeah, it's different energy reacting with it. If people have maybe a benign attached entity, but then they walk into a place that's full of other entities, are like, "Who are you bringing along?" And then things starts to go nuts. You always wonder if there's some play in that, people's own attachments. Like I said, with investigators, I know I've had that. They have their own little attachments sometimes that play into it. And it's kind of like ghost contamination.
Exactly. Or competition.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, now I'm a better spirit, get out of here, or I don't want to share my space with you.
What are some of the signs people should, you say a lot of the attachments, most people don't know. They just don't realize it's attachment. If somebody starts to listen to this show and think, well, do I have any attachment? What are the things that they should be kind of looking for? If it's something more benign that they didn't notice or know?
And to me, it's really about that inner voice. Does that inner voice just automatically go negative? And actually, one of the things that I saw, from my experience, and I've seen this with other people. So you're going along and things are great and you feel good. And then something happens and it puts you into a bad place. And you might be in that bad place for a week. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, bring, the clouds part, and you come back to the surface again and you end up being really tired. So true story.
Yeah.
I was working at this company. Okay, so I don't really handle sugar real well. And somebody had brought down to our department this box of chocolate covered, double coated chocolate covered raisins, which I ate way too many. And And it was near Christmas time. And so the company, and this is going to sound so petty, but the company was having a potluck, and I was dating someone that I worked with, and we were in the same kind of department, like, over, you know, above us was the same department, but not physically in the same department. And so I was going to make my baked beans. And so my baked beans has like 3 pounds of meat in it, you know, bacon, sausage, and ham, plus the beans, plus all the other stuff. And I bake them for like 5 hours, you know, and make this like big pan of baked beans. Well, the woman who is doing this, so, you know, we're talking, it was like $15 to make these baked beans. And so the woman who is organizing it says, well, you can't, you know, go in on something. You have to bring something separate. Well, this other guy was bringing 2 bottles of Coke, you know, or paper plates. It's like, well, I just don't think that's fair. I'm going to be bringing this very expensive dish. Why can't I go in on it? Well, it set me off. It literally set me off. And I was like, rah, 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 like, don't come near me. And I would like bitch at people. And, you know, I was just not a very pleasant person. That was my external experience. Internally, I ruminated about it for a week. And then, you know, again, the next week, someone told some stupid joke. You know, it wasn't even like a haha funny joke. It was just something that struck me. And literally, it felt like the clouds parted and the sun was finally shining in. And it took me another 24 hours to actually recover. And so people that have entity attachments, when the entity has kind of taken over, it's like, you're in this other place and it might take a day, a week, you know, who knows, for you to come back to the surface. But there is a very distinct, you were there before and now something has shifted. And you ask them and they usually can tell you, it's like, yeah, you know, this happens. And then it just changes. And I feel like me again.
So it's not like they're blacking out or anything. They're consciously aware, but they can't control their actions or mood. They just became a different personality in a way. Is that how it works?
Kind of. I mean, you know, but it's part of that dissociative thing,
right?
You know, so if you don't know, see, this is one of the things when it's an attached entity, many times people don't even know they have one, you know,
Right.
And so I've had so many people that it's like, well, you know, I have an entity attached. It's like, well, how do you know? You know, usually the people that really have entities attached find out because someone else tells them, because they just assume I'm just in a bad mood.
Right. It's that subtle.
It's subtle for the person that has the entity.
Not the people around them.
Well, because why would you sit there and think I have some stupid ghost attached to me and is manipulating my mood? Why would you think that? I mean, I think there's a lot more awareness now, you know, and once I understood that that's what was going on, then I could make conscious choices. It's kind of like, okay, I'm in the funky mood again. You know, is it me? Because there's something going on, or is it because this entity, his name was George, was trying to get into my space, you know, and then I could kick him back out. It's like, well, no, you got to go, you know, and it's not that he would go very far away, but at least he wasn't affecting me and I could regain my space and not be in a really crappy mood.
Did you ever find out why George was connected to you, why he was attached to you?
Well, it was a very interesting story. So I have a girlfriend who does hypnotherapy. And so we were swapping sessions and, you know, we were going to talk about, so when I was really young, I had my tonsils taken out. And so my mom would always say, you know, well, your voice got really nasal after you got your tonsils taken out. So we were going to sit there and kind of work on that. And that lasted for like 2 minutes, you know, because we went to that place and apparently I had a reaction to the antihistamine, or not the antihistamine, to the anesthetic, you know, and that's what started this whole thing. So then somehow, and I don't even know how we got on the topic. I mean, she knew that I had George and he was a pain in the butt. And so we ended up going and kind of delving into it. And so where I ended up going was to a past life. Okay. And I've seen this in a number of people.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was a past life. And basically the scene was I was a woman and I had left the house and gotten back, but I was really afraid. And when my husband got home, he figured out that I had left the house and was really upset and beat me to death.
Mm.
And it was this guy from this past life that was still following me around. And so kind of the impression I got, although it wasn't real clear doing the regression, and my girlfriend also had the same impression, was that I was pregnant. And I had gone to the doctor to find out whether I was pregnant or not, and didn't want to tell him because that would have upset him even more. So
wow. Oh, we've had, I've had people, talk about, and I've read about people that feel they've had an entity follow them from a past life. Yes. I mean, you have to think it's possible if a spirit doesn't move on and it had a lot of bad mojo or karma with somebody who did move on and get reborn, if they're able to recognize that they could find them and follow them.
Well, I mean, I had a
client.
client. Yeah, I had a client who I would sit there and I would talk about her dad, and the way that he appeared, I used to call him Zahi because he kind of reminded me of Zahi Hawass, the Egyptologist guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I would just joke around because his energy was just really annoying and really controlling and just
see how you feel about Zahi Hawass.
Well, and he was bald. So, but anyway, so I just would call him Zahi. So finally, and this was going on for a while, and we weren't really working on the entity issue per se, except he was always there. And it was, kind of bugging me because he was always around her. And so finally I made some comment about, well, his bald head. And she goes, my dad wasn't bald. So that took the whole thing into a whole other session or a whole other direction. And what ended up coming up, because, I'm working on this with her, but this entity's here and I'm like talking about him, and Zahi was attached to her dad, and her dad was actually pretty pathetic, but Zahi would go in there and booster him up and give him this attitude, this very like Middle Eastern, like I'm great attitude, kind of like Zahi. And so her dad was, well, I won't say that word out loud. Anyway, he wasn't a good person. How's that?
Yeah, we'll take that. PG.
And so the entity was courting her because he had a relationship with her in a past life and her dad, and it was this whole weird triangle thing. But the entity wasn't actually her entity, it was her dad's entity. And, could it have been kind of a generational entity? Possibly.
Well, what happens when her dad
kids.
passes away? What happens when her dad passes away? It could try to attach to her, or to her, if she had kids, to her kids.
She didn't have any kids. So, and at that point in time, she was already, in her 60s, early 60s, so she wouldn't have been a good host.
Yeah, he missed the boat on that one. We do got somebody on the phone line here, a regular caller. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
Doing pretty good, Jason. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in. You got a question for our guest tonight?
I got one question, and then I'll share my own attachment experience, if that's
Awesome.
okay.
That's totally okay.
Hey, Rita. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Zach.
My question goes back to interdimensional attachments. I believe you described them as very, very difficult. My question to you is, when it comes to an interdimensional attachment, what precautions do you take in place to prevent an attachment from returning if it's interdimensional?
Zach, I wish I had an answer for you, but I have not figured that out. I have given people guidance of how not to get them in the first place, but I haven't quite figured out how to seal that hole up. So I don't have guidance on that.
Okay, cool. No, and I definitely appreciate that. So my own attachment experience, it happened about 2 years ago. I was living out in an apartment at the time, and one afternoon I saw a friend of mine on Facebook. They were going live and they were doing a spirit box session, and she noticed that I had logged in to watch the show live, and there was no ill intention with this individual, but this individual asked Spirit Box, "Hey, do you want to go over and see Zach?"
Uh-oh.
And while voice on the box said, "We're here," I thought, "Oh crap!" That's bad. So soon after that happened, there were just a whole bunch of strange incidences that happened in my apartment. I would see my covers to my bed move on their own. I'd hear voices over in the apartment. I'd see this dark, shadowy blob in many different parts of the apartment that I was in. And even when my fiance was staying over, she was frightened one night because she saw on my wall there was a large shadow of a big spider, and it dissipated into smaller little spiders.
Mm.
And she could hear the voices as well. But what really shook her is one day I had to go into work, and I only lived about 5 minutes from where I worked at the time. And then I came back, and she was just frightened. I said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And she says, "Your bathroom lights kept turning on and off on their own." She said, "Do not leave me in this apartment ever again." I said, "Okay, that's no problem. I can do that." I was about to move out anyway at that time, so she didn't have to worry about that at all. But I mean, even she would see the blob too. She's like, "There's that blob. It's standing in the corner of your bedroom." And I'm like, "Yes, honey. I'm trying to get rid of it, and it wouldn't go away."
It's just my pet blob.
And
That's all.
just a pet blob. Yeah, and of course, I mean, I remember once being in my bathroom one time, and I got out of the shower, and all of a sudden I saw that blob, and what it did is that in the mirror I saw it ducking down, like it didn't want me to see it. And I'm like, "Yeah, I could see you. I know you're there." So, but this entity was not okay. But ironically, I had a little figurine statue of an angel that belonged to my grandmother. And I always kept it in a section of the apartment to where it can get direct sunlight. In that particular room, I would not have any kind of activity whatsoever that happened. And thankfully, I moved out, at the end of that year, and all the activity had stopped. But
Good.
That's my own story that I wanted to share.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Zach.
I would say, one thing about that too is, you said you're doing the live spirit box things, which I'll tell you, Rita, we do on this show once in a while. We'll be doing it for the Halloween show. We do open up the spirit boxes and let people call in. We try not to tell the spirits to go over to somebody's house except for ours. And we've had some weird stuff happen, but we try to keep it positive and joyful so we don't get anything dark. But, Zach, that place could have been haunted, and you having that spirit box and interaction just triggered the energy in there, and whatever was there it was already there, but it triggered it. And that's why you started having that activity after that.
Well, I live in an old house, and there's 2 ghosts that live here that I'm aware of. But I've had, especially when I first moved in, I mean, the house is 100 years old, and there was actually a house on this property, on this footprint prior to that. And so I've had people wanting to come and do an investigation in my house. And when I first moved in, I opened it up to all of my ghosty friends, and I have a lot in the area. If you want to come do an investigation, you can come crash at the house, do an overnight. I go, the entry fee is you have to come and strip some wallpaper, and I didn't even really care if they did that much, but every room and every surface, like ceiling, had wallpaper on the ceiling. There was wallpaper everywhere. So I was like, that's the charge of admission. And, but people have asked me multiple times, and I'm like, no, because, I don't want to stir anything up. It's like, one of the ghosts is fine. The other one likes to hide my stuff, and it irritates me.
There's different ways you could definitely stir stuff up in a house that's been pre-existing haunted. So that could have been the case. Well, thank you, Zach, for calling in.
Absolutely, Rita. And thank you so much for answering my question and hearing out my story as well. All right, everybody. You have a good night, all right?
You too, Zach. Thanks. Yeah, like his sounds like it was a haunting that got triggered. Mm-hmm. I just recently had somebody contact me that's going through, they just moved into they just bought a house and moved in, and they are having all really bad, I would say negative activity, the growling, stuff moving, negative feelings, they just moved in. I'm like, I want to say, I tell people that, give it some time. It could go away. Of course, when they talk about growling and stuff like that, and some of the stuff happening, it's more negative. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to tell you, because like, should I move? I'm like, I don't want to tell you should move. No. But, some of the stuff you're saying is more of the negative aspect you don't usually get with a haunting. But I did, I always say, just give it some time, because sometimes this stuff just dissipates. Your energy is interacting with that energy, and it just triggers it for a while. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've encountered that.
But there are things they can do. They can, smudge the house.
They did that and made it worse. They made it worse.
All right, well, then that's not good. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
One of the things, I've encountered is sometimes, houses are actually in vortexes.
Yeah.
Or you have other things going on. And I had this lady call. So I used to have a radio show, Just Energy Radio, and periodically I would do an open phone line. And I had this woman call, and she was like, I live in this house and I'm having all of this activity happen and blah, 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 blah. And so I said, okay, well, I just get the impression that, there's, active running water by your house. And she said, yeah, there's a stream that runs through my backyard. And I said, and if you went across the street from your house and like 3 doors down, I said, there's a giant vortex right there, and your house is on the periphery of this vortex. Oh, and wow. She goes, oh, yeah, 3 houses down on the other side is a cemetery. And then she goes, well, what can I do? And I'm like, move.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, me and my paranormal investigation group, we investigate, we try to make, find logical reasons what's happened, so we can just figure out what's going on in your home situation. Simple as that. We are not Ghostbusters. We do not come in and say we're going to get rid of the spirits in there, because we don't know what we're dealing with. And I don't know if I can get rid of it. A lot of times it ain't happening. And, that's why I never wanted to approach an investigation as, we're going to get rid of these spirits for you. No, there is no way of guaranteeing that to anybody at any time, because you don't know. There's just nothing that's going to get rid of certain places that they have, like you said, a vortex or, some kind of open doorway. It's just, there's not enough smudge to do it. And that's the thing, people will contact me like, well, should I smudge the house? Because the person's asked me this before, they told me that they did. And I'm telling them, no, I wouldn't do any smudging yet. I don't want to tell you to do that, because it can make things worse if we don't know what we're dealing with. And it's too far away for me to travel to come investigate. But I would tell you right now, let's just wait it out. Let's not smudge. You're like, oh, we already did. And I go, oh, okay. So what happened after you smudged? And they're like, well, we heard bells and doorbell. I'm like, okay. And then we heard growling. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, none of that's good. And this is why I don't tell people to just go right out and smudge it, because you might piss something off. It's not, you didn't get rid of anything, and you just pissed something off, and now things are going to get real dicey.
Exactly. Well, and when talking about the vortex or the moving water, it's like you can't change physical properties of the planet. It's just, there's not enough smudge, and there's not really anything you can do for your house, because it's a physical anomaly, I guess. I have a girlfriend who lives probably about 2 miles from me, and she's always talking about like doors opening and lights turning on and off and stuff. But she's a ghosty girl, so it's all cool. And so finally, I didn't really think about it, but then I went over to her house, and I was like, "Oh, you have a creek running right in front of your house. Like, how come I never noticed this before?" It's like, no wonder why it's freaking crazy at your house all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the ghost hunting. There's a lot of ghost hunting shows I wasn't a fan of, but one of the ghost hunting shows I kind of really liked. What was it with the Kling brothers when they first came on? It was on the Discovery Channel. I really liked they did an investigation because this house was sitting right on the Mississippi River, and they did this whole water test and electromagnetic test of the river and showed how much electromagnetic activity was coming off the river right at the house. And so many hauntings do correlate with running bodies of water. It is very common, so you wonder how that feeds into it. And you ain't getting rid of a river.
Well, and it's kind of like, it's a little highway, so you don't even have the same spirits there all the time necessarily. It could be this revolving door of spirits, but you bring up a good point, about the whole electromagnetic. Well, two things. I'm going to write a note for a second here. Static.
Not a problem.
I've done some investigations, especially in trailers. You end up going to like weird places where people are having issues. And, but there are a couple of trailers that people are having a lot of activity at. But when they would start, doing the EMF meters and whatever, they would find that, the power box wasn't grounded, and there was just too much natural phenomena going on that was attracting these spirits or actually amplifying the energy of the spirit. So, it's one thing that, in this one situation, the spirit would start down at the end of the hallway and then move up the hallway into the living room, but it passed the power box. And so as it came down the hallway, it got more and more and more and more and more energy. And then it could actually push the dog across the room, or make something happen, but it took a lot, so I'm sure everyone that is listening to the show has seen that, movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze,
of course.
and that one ghost who wanted a cigarette.
Yes.
He like would kick the can, but it takes a lot of energy. So you need something like water. You need something like electricity to give it the energy and give it the power so it can do something like kick a can.
Yeah. Yeah. And you notice, I've noticed on investigations, like if something major happens, like something moves or something happens, like the ghost really manifested for a second, then everything afterwards becomes like dead quiet.
Yep.
Like even the EVPs, they're not getting EVPs. And it's like it used up its energy. Or even if we got like a ton of EVPs, then it seems like the rest of the night, nothing happens. You don't even feel it. Because
it's discharged.
It's discharged. Yeah. I've always thought that's a possibility, that there's just so much energy. We've doing the ITC shows. We've had the spirits say stuff like it hurts or low energy or stuff that's come through that indicates that there's an energy factor of their own, to use it. One of the things, though, you catch investigators do, and this is one good way to probably get an attachment. It's like, use my energy, spirits to manifest. No. I'm sure you recommend it. I always tell them, don't do that. Don't say use my energy. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. You're going to have a bad time.
Well, there is a prominent, she has gone 180 degrees. So I'm just going to use her old self. A prominent person in the alternative thought, new agey area who would suggest to people to call in their angels. So if you're down, call in your angels. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. Because if you're in a bad place, and as I was talking about before, and your energy is low, and you just want to curl up in a ball and cry and die, it's kind of like, so are you going to get like Archangel Michael from up here? Or are you going to get, Michael, the guy that mows the lawn in heaven? Michael. You know what I mean?
Or technically, Lucifer was an angel. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'm here. I'm technically an angel. I'll help.
I'll help. Yeah. And so, I think it's interesting because I think that's one of the most terrible thing to suggest to people because it goes right in with automatic writing, Ouija boards, ghost box. If you're using that ghost box to help uplift you and take you out of a bad place, because it is this connection to spirit.
Yeah.
Calling in your angels. And okay, so I'm just going to kind of talk bad here for a second, So this was the platform that this individual spoke on for years.
Yeah.
Years. And now
I know what you're
she's
talking
a
about.
born again
Yes.
Christian person
Yes, I know.
who says these, it's all demonic
Yes.
and don't do it. And it's like, why? Because you got a bunch of attachments yourself.
Yep.
Or you found out that what you were doing ended up creating attachments to your people. I don't know what what it is, but I don't. Yeah, I was like,
You're not the first person to bring that. I won't say who, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, you're not the first person to bring them up. But yeah, you have to wonder, intent and permission given can be very powerful things. Your intent and what you ask for, you might receive, but not in the way you thought.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. So there's many ways I think people can invite these things in, innocently, they're not playing on a Ouija board, but there's innocent things people can do to invite these things in. Like I said, paranormal investigators, I've been on investigations that I had somebody go, you can use my, I'm like, stop, don't say that. Don't do that. Not allowed, because it just, I know it's a, you're going to have a bad time. You don't want to do it. You would never want to, give permission for something to use your energy, because that could be just all it needs. Like, no, I'm using it. Yeah,
forever.
Exactly.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll share this story. Let's come back to static energy, because that's something we need to talk about. Right. Static energy. I wrote a note, but I keep kind of going.
I'll write a note too. Okay.
So I was doing this one investigation. It was a very active haunting. And so I was like following this ghost around the house, and two of the other investigators were following me, followed this ghost around the house. And at one point in time, the three of us went into the bathroom. It wasn't a very big bathroom. We all kind of like stood around this ghost. And for me, what I heard was like a little chime go, pring, and he disappeared. And when I heard the chime, the other two people in the room kind of looked at me and they were like, well, I'm not feeling him anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, he's gone. So then I'm like, oh, where did he go? It's like, oh, he's over in the bedroom. And so one of the things that I'm able to do with my clients is actually, and this is going to sound weird, but step into their body. And so it helps me to assess health. It really can help me to assess where their emotions are at. I don't do it all the time, but there are situations where it is very helpful in the diagnostic area. So for some unbeknownst reason, although I do feel like the spirit was kind of pushing me a little bit, I went and stood in the footprint of where the ghost was standing and let him climb into my body.
Ooh.
Oh, I didn't really think about it at the time. And the next thing I knew is I was standing there, like I'm trying to get on camera, standing there with my hand like this going, bam, 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 bam. And I just kind of like came back and went, what the heck? I mean, I knew what was going on because the image I was getting was of this woman and this man was grabbing her shirt and punching her in the face.
Oh my God.
So one, I never did that ever again. Because that was just like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. Yeah, it was really intense, just stepping into that energy in that way of just something so negative. And the people that I was with were kind of freaking out because I was freaking out. And I know that I'm running a lot of energy because sometimes my fingers will swell up. And my fingers were like balloons. Like if I was going to try to take one of the rings I was wearing off, it never would have come off. I mean,
that's interesting you say that, because I have the weird experience sometimes when I have this energy. When I'm on investigations, I get like this whole blotchiness in my hands. Like this is like this whole weird blotchiness and a little bit of swelling. I have arthritic problems. So as I get older, I'm get my fingers swell. But I would notice this even back when I started doing this, later 20s and that I get this blotchiness and kind of redness in my hands sometimes when I'm feeling like energy. So that's something that happens.
So there's something that's called running energy, so I think most people are familiar with the energy channels that run down the back of the spine where the chakras are connected. But there are also channels that run down the arms. And so when you're doing energy work, you're actually projecting energy out of the hands. And so when you're in a very intense energetic situation, and you know what kind I'm talking about, 'cause it doesn't happen all the time, but there are times that energy is just like kind of going crazy.
It's got to find somewhere to go. I want to address this question. So, Royal here says, I'm confused now, Jason. Can you ask Rita if she wouldn't pray? Is it like calling in your angels? He's talking about prayer.
Okay.
She was saying, call down your angels. It's different than what prayer would be, right?
Correct. So I think that prayer is a great thing. One of the things that I believe is that the ghosts or the attached entities respond to your energy. So if everybody's upset in the room or if everybody's drunk in the room, it's going to accentuate what's going on. So to me, prayer is a form of meditation. It's a way to get quiet within. And so that's a great thing because you're not saying, hey, Jesus, come down and fix me. It's like you're looking up for solitude. When we pray, it connects us to God, so through those energy channels. And so it makes us a better vehicle for running our own energy, creating balance within our auric field, and making us be centered and grounded. So prayer is actually a great thing.
Yeah.
What we were talking about earlier was literally sitting there going, please have my angels come down around me and protect me.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, a lot of people believe in that, though. I mean, she wasn't the only one preaching that. I mean, I have guests on the show that believe they have angels they can call upon to protect them or help them. I mean, it's a common belief among people in the spiritual world.
It wasn't. I'm older. Okay, it didn't used to be that way.
Well, yes, it's become more popular. It's become more popular.
It was definitely
she wasn't the only
popular.
one.
It was. Yeah. She made it popular.
Yeah. I wouldn't lay that. What I'm saying is I wouldn't lay it all at her feet because who we're not talking about here. But it just in general, she wasn't the only one. There's a lot of people that go down that path. One of the things we're gonna get to that static energy, but we were kind of talking about what I call what happened to you with the pounding is a walk-in experience. I had that happen with an investigator of mine, and it was scary. It was one of the most scariest things I've ever dealt with on investigation. I watched her get snippy with me, and like she never does. Wow, okay. And then she just froze. I'm like, Judy, she used to be on this show, and it gets too late for her now, and. She was just frozen for a good solid minute. And then somebody else had to drive her home. This was so bad. The next day, she didn't remember any of it. It blanked. She had blanks in her memory from that night. And seriously, we had her consult with one of our friends that's a medium, Katrina Cooper. And she's like, that was a walk-in experience. You had a spirit walk into you. Yeah. And I'm like, I totally believe that because that was not her. And I had the blank memory. It scared me to have this happen to one of my investigators.
Yeah, and I wouldn't consider what I did a walk-in experience. I let it step in.
You let it. She didn't, but it happened.
Or maybe I stepped into its energy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I did, that interaction, it's like I do with my client, so it wasn't an unknown factor for me.
Right.
For her and I did it on a very conscious level.
Yeah.
It didn't just spontaneously occur.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so see, for her, that's what made it so scary. She didn't invite this in. So, she didn't tell, hey, use my energy. She's smart enough. She never did that. She'd been with me long enough to know not to do that. But it still happened. It still happened on an investigation. And I was like, she really scared me. And one of her friends, Katrina, says, well, it's because she also has mediumistic abilities. She's always said, I'm not psychic at all. She would always say that. And our friend Katrina's like, oh no, you have mediumistic abilities that you just don't realize. And something used it that night, and it walked right in and used you. And I'm like, well, it scared the heck out of me. I was, next time we were on investigation, I'm like, you all right? You doing all right, Judy? Like, don't let that happen again, because it was scary.
It's a really fine line. I mean, if you think about it, people that channel, and spirits or whatever,
or aliens,
they are opening themselves up to having some entity, good, bad, or indifferent, come into their body, their physical body, and kind of take control.
Yeah, I always sound like. I mean, I've had channelers on the show. I think actually next week our next guest is a channeler. We've had channelers on the show, and it's just one of those scenes that's like, I would never do that. It's interesting to talk to them and get their perspective, but I wouldn't, if I had the ability, I wouldn't do it. I would not want to invite something into me and take over and talk through me. Nope, never. I'm all about discovering my psychic abilities, but that's where I would draw the line. I don't want something coming in and speaking through me.
I mean, I know that in some of the work that I do, I just talk and.
Well, there's things that come through
it just
that might
comes
be
out. It just flows out, but I don't.
That's different, though. Like
right
when somebody channels and it's the multiple personality, pretty much. I mean, they can change demeanor and their voice, and they're channeling it. We've had, that's a whole different road. Like I had one of my most personal psychic experiences I've talked about on the show. I know a bunch of times, people, is I held a photo of a person who was deceased. I didn't have a name, didn't know who they were. I wasn't trying. It was hanging out with some friends, and it was a long story, but holding this photo, and I blurted out, "Oh, his name's Robert. He goes by Bill." And the owner stopped, or Robert, his name goes by Bob. Sorry. The owner stopped and goes, "That is his name. I even told my girlfriend that, and then they're like, try to get the last name. I'm like, I don't know why I said the first name. I was a little freaked out. Why I just suddenly blurted this out, and I'm holding this picture. It just came out of nowhere. And I was freaked out, but they're like, try to get what's the last name? I'm like, I don't know why I said the first name, but I did sit there holding this picture. And then that little voice in your head sounded like my voice. My little inner voice was like going, Eiler. I could just like slightly hear my inner voice. I'm like, it's something like Eisler, something like that. He goes, it's Eisler. Oh my God. Like I got the guy's last name from holding the picture, but it freaked me out. It did freak me out because of the first instance of just saying their name out without even thinking about it. Like my mouth open and I'm talking. I'm like, why am I doing that? That was a really weird, only time I've had experience like that, but it freaked me out.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
The weird thing was instant knowing in that instant, in that instance of knowing the name and getting that. And then I also had like just sudden instant knowing that the guy was an alcoholic. The photo album there was a photo album left behind was from his children, because they were disgruntled about their father's alcohol abuse, and that they had left stuff there. And I said he had hidden away his World War II items, memorabilia, stuff from when he was in the war. It's somewhere in this house. 2 weeks later, his girlfriend finally found it hidden under a stairwell in a secret compartment. All of his World War II stuff. Just like it was just instant knowing. Only time in my life I've ever done that. But it was like somehow that night I connected with his spirit. Like I could feel his energy. I knew he was an alcoholic. I just knew all these things. It was the weirdest experience.
But that's more kind of mediumistic versus channeling.
Channeling, right? That's the difference. Yeah, But like I said, I was freaked out just the one instance of it making me open my mouth and say his first name at that moment, without any thought or why am I speaking. That's the closest I think, maybe it's not channeling, but that's the closest I got to it. And I never got closer to it again, because I'm like, I could probably handle the mediumistic thing, like the knowing, like knowing all this stuff. But the when it made me talk without any thought, like my mouth opening and words coming out, that's the one part of it I did not like.
But see, it might not have been the dead guy getting you to talk. It might have been, your hot, because we have the ability to just do things on a knowingness level where we just know. Yeah. And I joke around that our knowingness for most people is directly connected to their mouth. So you make these off-color statements, but they end up being true. I've gotten to where
done that.
I make these off-color statements and I'm like, ooh, and usually it's kind of embarrassing because, it's some secret that no one's supposed to know, but I do.
Yeah, I've done that in my life. I've done that with people. I'm like, I don't know why I said that. And they're like, oh, well, that's really interesting. You said that, like,
so I kind of feel like that Bob thing was kind of more that level than the spirit talking to you. But I do want to make a commentary, so I believe that I have spirit guides that talk to me. I call them the peanut gallery. They sit over here, probably about like right there next to me. There's 3 or 4 of them. They're the ultimate backseat psychics. So if I kind of ask them a question, they don't tell me anything. But if I'm telling a client something like, oh, well, you got this going on, and they'll be like, no, don't tell her that. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and I know it's them because it's always right here. They never give me misinformation. They're kind of annoying at times. They're backseat psychics. And, it's so people can have that, people can communicate with spirit and not have it be a negative thing. We're talking about all this very negative connection, but it's the peanut gallery. And people are like, well, why don't you find out who it is? And I'm like, I don't care. They don't care. It's the peanut gallery.
When I think about it, was Bob's the ghost that haunts my house now. It was when I held the picture, it was William, and then he went by Bill. Bob's the ghost that haunts my house. That doesn't really haunt my house. He built the house, but get my spirits mixed up.
I have John.
But like I said, there's the big difference between channeling and mediumship. But the channeling is where I draw the line. I just think that it's got to be very, very dangerous. I mean, think about people like Edgar Casey, who had, he went into that deep, like trance-like state, and he wouldn't remember anything he said during that. And something powerful was coming through him, and eventually it might have killed him. For all the readings he was doing, from what he was channeling, the power of it might have just deteriorated him or caused poor health. It can't be good.
I worked in a bookstore a million years ago, metaphysical bookstore, and sharing the space with me was this guy that did channeling. And it was just really fascinating to watch because he channeled 2 primary spirits, and kind of depending on what the question was that the person brought would really depend on which spirit would turn up. Yeah. And so, after watching him a while, I was like, oh, so, I guess you brought so-and-so in. And he goes, well, how do you know? And it's like, well, when you bring so-and-so in, your body hunches over and you kind of twist to the side and lean on your elbow like this. I go, he comes in like down to your knees, and he pretty much takes over. I go, and then you bring this other guy in and he comes down to about this far and he takes over your throat, but that's about it. And it's 2 different levels of insight that the 2 brought. And he was just shocked that I could identify which spirit he was bringing in just by watching what was going on with his body. So it's interesting because if you can sit there and watch, spirit moving in or out, there are a lot of people that say they channel. I don't want to say everybody, but maybe not so much or not as spontaneously as they claim.
Yeah, there's some believability factors with some channelers I might have an issue with. We'll talk more about that. We're going to go to our last commercial break. Phone lines are still open, guys. You can call in if you had. I would love to hear, like Zach, about your own attached entity experience if you had one. I think some of you had. So please call in. We'll be back after the short commercial break.
Intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal
and want to hear from leading researchers in the field. Join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDiff.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
The lines are open. I just saw somebody try to call in and missed it. Barely gave me a second to answer it. Keep trying to call. Call back. We'll take your call. If I missed it, I'm sorry. I saw him try. But the lines are open, and I want to hear your personal entity attachment stories if you've had them. Let's hear about it. Talk about it. We got Dr. Rita Louise tonight talking about attached entities. What a better person to ask about your experience. You get some insight on. I've had my experiences, of course. I've shared on the show countless times. You've heard them. My shadow person experience really affected me. I totally believe a person when they say they think they have something following them or is attached, especially if it's negative. It can really wreck somebody's life. Some of these attachments. It's so many people that might be going through this or in mental wards have, in a psychiatric ward have no idea. Nobody knows that's what's causing it. It's not a mental condition, but attached entity. There's so much in the world around us, in the spirit world, that affects our lives every day. We don't even realize how it's influencing us or affecting our lives. That's why I love this topic. But again, guys, call in, share your experiences, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Now, I don't think I had in my notes, because I know you wrote it down too. We didn't get back to static energy. You wanted to talk about that too. Oh.
Right, we did not. But let me just throw in a little pitch here. So we've been talking about attached entities this whole time. And on my webpage, soulhealer.com, there's like 6 videos that talk specifically about attached entities. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can go check it out. It's free. So I'd like to put that out there, as well as information about all my books, including the Dark Angels book, which we've been talking about. Okay. But I was thinking about the videos. I'm like, I got all that information out there and might as well.
Yep. Soulhealer.com.
Yeah. Okay. Static energy. So we've been talking about, situations that can create ghostly phenomena, the water, the vortex, bringing stuff home with you. But there's another phenomena that actually is very common that doesn't really involve ghosts at all. And that is the concept of static energy. So static energy means that your environment is stuck. And so where some people will go in and smudge, which can get static energy moving, sometimes the energy is just so stuck that it leaves you feeling uncomfortable, or that there's areas that feel dark, like, well, I don't like going into that closet. There's got bad energy in it. And it's not that there's a ghost in the closet usually, and this just sounds terrible and maybe a little judgmental on my part, but usually there's just all kinds of crap in there. And it's like your anxiety closet, and the things you don't want to look at, and the things you don't want to deal with, that's where you put them. And so I would like to suggest to people that if they're feeling that there's weird stuff going on in their house, or they're not quite sure, that maybe going and like cleaning your house. I don't mean that in a judgmental way, go through the closets, empty them out, and bring the energy into your house up to date, and then smudge it.
No, you know what? I got somebody on hold. Hold on there. I got somebody on the phone line, 519 area code. We'll get to you in just a second. But that you brought up an interesting point that I've talked about with my paranormal investigators in our group. We had one area that, of course, it was a haunted location famous for Belle Guinness in our town, our county, who murdered probably over 40 gentlemen and her children. And then this is 1908. She's like the first Black Widow serial killer. But that whole area, the whole land area where she dumped a bunch of bodies, of course, haunted probably. I mean, a lot of weird stuff happened there. We investigated the actual property, but all the houses in that area had activity, it seemed like, and bad mojo. And you know how many hoarders lived in that area? Like every single house was like they were hoarders. And I've seen other cases. I've had a lot of cases where hoarding always seemed to be connected to the case. Like I've walked in plenty of investigations like, oh, here's another hoarder. you know, and they got all this weird paranormal stuff going on.
Lack of cleanliness.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, bad energy, feng shui or something. They're like, those, you know, all that garbage and stacks of crap you got, that's probably holding a lot of bad energy.
Mm-hmm. You know, and so for people that aren't really sure what I'm kind of talking about, but if you've ever gone into like an antique store, you know, and there's just kind of this feel to it, you know, it's not necessarily bad, but there's a feel, and it's because all of those items in there come with residual energy attached to them.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's get this phone call. They've been waiting here. 519 area code. Who do we got?
Hello, how are you doing, Jason?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, it's Bill from London, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, Bill.
So I have a comment and a question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you, Bill. You're good.
Okay. Number one, I sent you some pictures tonight of the house that I grew up in. I don't know if you got them. I put them on Facebook, sent them to you. Katrina Cooper was going to look at those pictures and tell me what she thought. I don't know if you got them or not. I hope you did.
Did you send it to me in Messenger or tag me or?
Facebook. Actually, my wife sent them to you. I don't know how to do that stuff. But.
Oh. Huh. How long ago? Like recently or tonight? You said tonight?
Yeah, 2-3 hours ago.
Hi, I'm not seeing it, but I'll have to look and see. When I'm on air, it's hard for me to find it. Go ahead. Yeah.
You do see a house. That's my old house.
Okay, I will. Go ahead, Bill.
All right. Yes, Rita. Apparently, according to Katrina Cooper, I have an attachment. Some guy that's been following me around for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And I've been aware of him, actually. I can feel him sometimes. But I think because his energy and my energy are so close, it's really hard for me to tell. And I used to be really pissed off at the guy, but now I'm trying to not be. I'm trying to actually send love to him. Am I doing the right thing? Or
that is
hard.
That is a really great thing. You know, anybody, if you sit there and you push them away or you're mean to them, their knee-jerk reaction is to dig their heels into the sand. And they just don't want to go. And usually if there's an entity attachment, they're usually kind of cranky. That's been my experience.
Right.
And so being nice to them, sending them love, showing them like they can go to the light sometimes helps.
Right.
You know, I think a lot depends on how deeply they're attached to you and entrenched with you. Also figuring out what it is that it's attaching to you, what that vibration is. And so when you notice it around you, there's probably something that happened just prior to you noticing him, you know, or the day before, a couple of days before, that got triggered in you. You know, I joke around that entities like that, it's kind of like you have the bat phone. Remember the bat phone, the red phone with the one button on it?
Yes.
You know, so something happens, you get triggered, and that triggering pushes the button on the bat phone. It says, hey, entity, come in and help me make it through this situation. Dysfunctional as it may be, it's what we do. And so by identifying what's going on in you that's causing you to push that button and then healing that piece, you know, so maybe it bothers you because you feel invisible or insignificant, you know, so you go to the supermarket and you're trying to get somebody to help you, but they're, you know, actually, like you go to Lowe's and you're standing in the aisle waiting for somebody to walk by and you're like looking for somebody, you know, and so it can trigger if you had issues around, you know, I feel invisible, you know, it could trigger something like that, you know, but it's something innocuous that happens in our day-to-day life that could bring that entity around you. And so figuring out what that is and then doing some inner healing and recovery, like emotional recovery from that, would be also a really great step for you to take as well.
Yes.
And I found the pics. Now I see the message.
You did? Great.
Yeah, from C here. So CEE, right? That's it. I said something about this is a house that has spirit ghosts of an old man stuck in it. Jason, you said you needed pics in order to release or help the spirit move on. I don't release or move spirits on at all. I don't know. I don't do that at all.
My wife actually wrote that. I did not.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have that ability. I am not a psychic or medium.
Yeah, nor do I. I've tried.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that house was like, I grew up in that house. It was like Halloween 3 nights a week. It was just really weird. And I've lived in a lot of places, man. I've never come across any house like that. It was just so weird.
You know, and sometimes
there were more dead people in that house than live people.
So sometimes I think houses change people too. Like you had nothing abnormal happen to your life. You move into this house, and ever since, and it's not like things followed you from the house, but it triggered something in you, awoke something up in you that you're able to recognize spirits after you leave that area. It changes people.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being like a little kid. I was in the crib trying to get out, and there was this woman standing there, and I knew it wasn't Mom. It was just so weird. What a weird place.
It's a beautiful home.
Katrina can look at it and see what she can do, if she can do anything. We don't live there anymore, but
yeah, she needs to get these pictures to Katrina. That's who might be able to do it with the pictures. She does need pictures, so she's probably talking about Katrina. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I talked to her about a month ago or a month and a half ago on your show.
Oh yeah. Now I remember. Okay, yeah, definitely. But yeah, we definitely want to get those pictures of Katrina. She can definitely probably help on that.
I took a nice long shot of the backyard because I think it's an elemental. I think I don't know. What do I know? I don't know anything.
I'm right there with you. Who knows? But it's something. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for calling in. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I've never had a green head. I've never had a green head float by, but I have had a woman float above me, and it's a little wild. It's weird.
It is weird. I've had that experience too. I had
you had a woman float above you?
Well, you know, I was just talking about the Bill Guinness case that I did years ago. And, talk about stuff following you home from an investigation. My wife got her own little witchcraft that she goes on, and she words the house. Sometimes that wording doesn't work. And we had a number of investigators, one who quit investigating after the Bill Guinness because he felt something followed him home. And I go, it's interesting you think something followed you, because right after Bill Guinness, I walk into what is now my 4-year-old's bedroom, but it wasn't. It was my office. And I see this dirty dress hanging from my ceiling. I'm like, why? I look, and it's I see like a dirty dress, but I actually notice it's a person. I can't see their head because it's in the ceiling, but they're like hanging from my ceiling, and it was like a dirty dress. And all I could sum it up is like, I don't know if that's from Bill Guinness, but I don't want anything to do with a ghost serial killer. So I had my wife reward the house, and we didn't have any other issues. But yeah, I had her floating right above me. I couldn't see her head. It was in the ceiling. It was a weird experience.
I know, it's weird stuff.
Oh yeah, that's what we love, though.
All right, well, I won't tie up the phone for any longer. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
We'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
You do this work long enough, and your family gets involved, and then you tell stories, and people are like, "What?" So. I don't know if a ghost followed me home. I'm not really sure where this guy came from, and I don't really care, but I was in my office, and I had a poodle, and her spot was on top of the sofa, so she could see everything in that space. And she's on top of the sofa just barking. Now this dog, you would have to shake her to let her know that people came in the house, because she didn't ever wake up. And, and so I go in there and I pick her up, and I'm kind of playing with her. And, I thought maybe she, just wanted some attention. Put her down. She gets back on the sofa and starts barking again. So I look to what she's barking at, and I'm like, oh, there's a man standing in my kitchen. No, so that's that was fine. I mean, I didn't know who it was. So this is where, you know, and I'm sure you're going to relate to this. This is where it gets fun doing this kind of work. Is I get on the phone, get up with my husband. Hey, there's this man standing in the kitchen. Do you know who it is? No, I don't know. Okay, thanks. Click. You know, I don't even think that's weird.
No, it's a normal conversation in our kind of house.
But apparently to some people, they don't do that.
Welcome to a paranormal family. No, that's totally how it is in our house. That's so how it is in our house. I mean, we've had so many weird things happen because of just being me and my wife. We're both, that's why I married my wife. I knew like the first 5 minutes of our date that I'm like, I'm marrying this woman. You know, because she was right in the same, you know, same interest and thought about the same things. It was totally open. I could talk to her about all the weirdness I never could tell a girlfriend before. Because she was totally experienced a lot of the same stuff I did as a kid and was totally open to it all. So yeah, that's how it goes in our home, even with our kids.
Well, see, then the story continues. Now that you brought kids in, so that happened. So I'm in my office and the desk was back like kind of against a wall, and there was a door coming in. And so my son comes into my office, but he's standing like in the doorway, which goes into the kitchen. And he's talking to me, and he just stops. And he looks in the doorway to the kitchen. He goes, "Who's that man standing there?"
Oh, man.
And I go, "I don't know. Do you?" And he looked at me and he goes, "I've been hanging around you entirely too long." And he stomped out.
How old was he? How old was he?
About 13, 14. No, he would complain. My dog, a different dog that I had that they grew up with, died. He was like, you know, I saw Kiko in the hallway again last night. I mean, they would complain to me about like seeing stuff. It's like, sorry, you know, I didn't like give it to you or anything.
Oh yeah. My kids are totally fascinated with the, you know, what we do and all that stuff. But my 9-year-old gets kind of frightened by it. And so I'm trying not to say too much anymore because, I mean, there's stuff that happened. I feel real bad. Like when we first started doing the ITC stuff in the beginning of the show 5 years ago, when we first started experimenting with this, it wasn't during a show. It was like during the daytime when I was trying to do a sound check, make sure my ITC stuff was going to work. And I was on with other people helping me test. And I go, hold on a second. I got this really weird feeling. And I'm like, I need to go check on my son. I go upstairs and he's hiding under his table in his bedroom. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He goes, there was a man and a little girl here just now. And he was, I don't know, Dean was 5 or 6 years old. I go, well, what did they look like? He goes, well, the man had belts on his shirt and the little girl was wearing a white dress. She had dark hair. I'm like, okay, well, those aren't bad spirits, I don't think, because what he described was what looked like my great-grandfather I saw during my shadow person experience that saved me, and the little girl in the white dress, dark hair, is the unborn little sister I used to see. I have memories of still. So I think they were like warning me, like, hey, you don't do this. You know, like, and I don't ever do it except for on occasional show nights. I don't just do spirit boxes in my house at all, except for show nights. That's the only time I'm allowed to by my wife because of that experience.
Well, you know, my sister has an autistic son, and this was years ago. I mean, I think he's going to be 18 this year. And so I get this phone call, you know, this random phone call. Colin's standing next to the giant plastic Santa and talking to him. Should I be concerned? I'm like, well, you know, I'm kind of feeling like there's this entity in the sofa, and he's just, you know, having a conversation with this entity. She goes, okay, so what should I do? And I'm like, well, you know, if you don't want him talking to entities, I guess you could move it, but he'll just come somewhere else. And so, yeah, she didn't like the plastic Santa after that. But then things evolved because Colin decided to create a vortex in his bedroom. So now all of these spirits are coming, and she had 4 boys, and they're all awake in the middle of the night, playing with the entities. But they were all, I contacted a group that I know in New York, because she's in New York, and sent them to her house, you know, and I said, and please, if you have someone that does readings, you know, as part of your group, please go. You know, it turned out to be all family, So I'm like, well, then just tell them to shut up and go to bed. It's 2:00 and you can come back at 9. And whenever that would happen, she would go in and it's like, okay, party's over. You got to go. You can come back at 9. And they would.
Well, what's because I'm sure some people that are parents watch this is like when is it like imaginary friend or just or like me talking to my unborn sister? That's not a bad thing. It's benign. But when do you know if it's benign or not when your kid's talking to somebody who's not there?
When they get scared.
When they get scared.
Or they start behaving badly. I'm looking at the clock. All right. I got one more story. So this is probably like the creepiest, I'm going to say, investigation I ever did. But I will never forget this story because so we got called into an investigation, but the woman wasn't complaining about ghosts. She was saying that her daughter was writing these like rune-like symbols on the bathroom wall. So normally I would just kind of take a pass on it, but it was like 2 miles from my house. And I'm like, sure, I'll come. And, we go and the woman's like, well, what do you think of these symbols? And I'm like, well, I don't really know, what's going on with the symbols. Is she's channeling some Atlantean language? I don't know.
How old was the daughter?
6.
Okay.
So I turn in the bathroom and on the vanity, on like the marble top or whatever, there are these eyeballs drawn in a magic marker and the eyeballs are following me.
Oh.
So I kind of like, okay, that's a little creepy. So I check in with the eyeballs on the vanity and I'm getting these images of this pirate. That's living in the vanity. I'm like, okay. So the little girl comes and is standing in the bathroom doorway. And I just said, well, do you know who this is? She goes, it's a pirate.
Ooh.
So then I asked her something else. And she, I could tell that she was answering honestly. And then it went off into fantasy land. I mean, you could tell.
The typical kids, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm telling the woman, I'm kind of doing my download to the woman and telling her about that. And so she goes, well, what about the doll? And I'm like, well, what do you mean the doll? She goes, it's in the bedroom on the shelf. And so I'm like, well, let me go check out the doll. So I walk in and it's, go into the bedroom, look at the bookcase, look at the doll. And I get, I've got a secret. I've got a secret. It freaked me out. I was out of that room, away from the doll. And so I go back and she goes, so what do you think about the doll? And I just looked at her and I'm like, I've got a secret. Her eyes got huge. She goes, my daughter says that to me in the same sing-song voice. And there have been situations where she said that and then like took a fork and stabbed me in the leg.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, she was part of a pagan community that with people that I knew and trusted. I said, you need interventions for her. I go, because she has a lot of ability, but she is really close to the dark side.
Oh, wow.
Really close to the dark side. That was scary.
So that is, when it involves children, that's the scariest. When, one thing for adults that have influences and stuff, but when it involves children, that's just as scariest. As a parent, I guess, even before I was a parent, though, it still scared me when I had clients that had children involved in these kind of situations, because they're innocent. They shouldn't have these attachments, So that's scary. Did she ever get it resolved, or did you ever find out?
You know how you go do an investigation. I mean, it wasn't my group. I just did my thing. So, yeah, don't know. I'm sure she got rid of the doll. I'm sure that she did. Before we go, though, I want you to be able to give out more of your information, how people contact you, any of the last information you want to get out before we run out of time. Sure. So, again, what I do for people is readings, so whether it's talking about your health or your relationships, or whether you have an entity, or if you want energy work done because you think you might have an entity attached, et cetera, et cetera. You can get information about that on my website, which is Soul Healer, SoulHealer.com, soulhealer.com. Again, there are the videos on there. My books are all on there. My books are also all available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, all the regular places. You can find me on Facebook at Dr. Rita Louise, on Facebook, Dr. Rita Louise. Or if you want to get involved with my political crap, it's Psychic Doc on Twitter.
Well, it was really honor to have you on the show. I'd love to have you on again. We have so many other topics we got into tonight, like that you cover. Like ancient aliens is a huge one for me. Anything to do with ancient aliens, I'm totally into. So I'd love to have you back on the show again sometime.
Okay. Yeah, ancient aliens, man. I can fill hours with.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Me and my wife, we tell our kids we go to the Church of Ancient Aliens, basically.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's just a fascination I've had since I was a kid. I mean, I read Chariots of the God when I was 10 years old. My mom had a copy of it, and I read it, and just Eric von Daniken right there. It's an instinctual thing. I've always just felt it before I even read Chariots of the God, that maybe it's the Star Trek in me. I don't know, but I always felt that there's been, aliens, what's in the Bible's aliens, and there's, we encountered something in the past and we described it as gods, but it was really aliens. It's just a fascination of mine.
Yeah, I mean, and all you have to do is just have like somebody open that door, if there's already kind of that peace in your mind. Because I've read the old, parts of the Old Testament, especially Genesis through the Bible, which if we come back and talk about ancient alien stuff, I focus on that. That if you get rid of God and put alien in there, the Bible makes total sense.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And there's so many good Star Trek episodes that relate to that, especially, TNG.
Q.
Q. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, my God. I hope do you watch, before we go, I'll check out for you for a minute. Have you watched Star Trek Discovery or any of the new Star Trek? Or you're like, oh, no, it's a sin.
No, I've watched Discovery, watched Picard, watched
too.
all the original stuff. The only one I haven't watched was Enterprise.
See,
and
a lot of Star Trek fans. See, a lot of Star Trek fans don't. That actually got my wife interested in Star Trek by introducing her to Enterprise. She loved it. I was a big Quantum Leap Scott Bakula fan. So I guess I gave it more of a chance than a lot of Star Trek fans did. And I actually really liked it. It started off kind of but then they did this whole carry-on story. I really encourage you as a Star Trek fan to check. I try to convince all my other Star Trek fans.
I only made it through I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes, and I was
it starts off slow, but it gets really good by season 2 is really good, and it got really good by the last season, and then they of course cancel it. Yeah.
Of course.
So, they did a whole mirror universe thing that was really awesome. Their 4th last season too. That was awesome, just awesome. But I know my Star Trek fans would be like, "That's a sin, not Enterprise," But yeah, I grew up on TNG, Next Generation, and I Star Trek huge. My kids are Trekkies because of me, but it's all right.
But see, my mom was a Trekkie, and so I had this guy when I had my show. He came out with Treknologies, which is the book that talks about how we have technology that was talked about in Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
And so the whole interview starts off with, original Star Trek, Next Generation. What do you think about the new Star Trek movies with the new cast? And well, my mom liked it, so it must be good.
Well, as I say, just have you seen? Before we go, just you talk about Q. They're talking about LaChance, the actor, coming on to Picard, and I'm like, they better not. Don't hint at that. That better happen. Because I'm a huge Q fan. I'm
a huge Q fan. Well, especially when you talk about ancient aliens, I always bring up Q.
Oh yeah,
I'm just going to give you that little teaser. I always talk about Q.
We got to have you on to talk about ancient aliens. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rita Louise. Check out soulhealer.com. That's her website. And her book we really talked about tonight was Dark Angels, an Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities. Thank you so much, Rita. Like I said, we definitely got to get you back on the show.
Okay. Bye.
All right, next week, guys, we're going to have, like we said, we're talking about channelers. We're going to have channeler Joy Rochelle. She's a channeler and transformational healer. We're going to have her on next week, her first time on the show. We'll find out more about that and find out maybe, what her opinion is on the dangers of channeling. Like I said, something if I discovered I had all this psychic ability is one thing I would like, yeah, but I'm not going to channel. That's not my forte. Too scary for me. All right, guys, thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Specific time. Cannot talk by then. It's late, you can tell. Thank you to everybody who shares the show out. That is the biggest help. Thank you to all of our patrons. You help pay the bills. And if you want to check it out, just look up Paranormal Soup on Patreon. $2 a month helps pay the bills for the show. Everybody that does help, thank you so much. All right, guys, see you next week. Have a great night.
Thank you.